company can save.
Good morning. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Good to be back. I hope you all enjoyed your weekend. Thank you to Stan and Griffin for filling in on Friday.
So we did a heroic job, I think. That's what people were saying.
Heroic?
That's what people were saying.
Heroic, you said.
Yes.
I mean, I think
We
you were.
saved Glenn Clark Radio.
I think you were fine, but whoever the heck that other guy was that was in here with you, that maniac, that psychopath moving the Lamar-O-Meter up to 78%. Who the hell is that guy? Crazy person. That guy's it's nuts. I thought we might get him to wander in and defend himself for that. Stan's actually here today, but he's working in the other room. I was trying to egg him on, and I don't even know if he hears me. We'll get to the Lamar-O-Meter in a second. Coming up this morning, we got a lot to talk about. I had a great weekend with the folks from Ed Block. I'll tell you all about that. Also, we'll dive into a rough weekend for the Birds. And one national championship game down, one to go. Obviously, much discussion about yesterday's LSU-Iowa game. Angel Reese, Baltimore native, winning the title, but a lot of people unhappy with Angel Reese and her actions at the end of the game. I'm writing about it today at PressBoxOnline.com, and I might not give it away this time. I haven't decided yet. I know every Monday I just give away my column on the show and sort of like, wait, why would you go read it? I just told you everything. I might not this time for a change. Maybe. We'll see how things play out. Coming up on the program today, Pat Skerry, Towson basketball coach. He was recently named Skip Prosser Man of the Year by College Insider, which is a very high honor for everything that Pat does. I think a lot of people around here are very familiar with his work with autism and the fight to try to help those who deal with autism, and it's a cause that is very important to him. He was recognized for that down at the Final Four this week, so we'll talk to him about that. We'll also preview tonight's title game, San Diego State and UConn, for the national championship. By the way, that will determine who wins our bracket contest. I don't remember who it is that has UConn. If UConn wins, well, you won't be able to tell by their name. I just don't remember. I got to go back through and figure out who it is. Ryan Chell would be the winner if San Diego State wins tonight. So very much a lot still to be determined in our bracket contest based on tonight's game. I'm going to guess that UConn wins.
It seems that way.
Seeing as how they have pounded everyone that they have played in this tournament. It has been a blowout, but other than that, all good. Total chance for San Diego State. And, of course, Lamont Butler authored, a pretty eternal moment. No matter what happens with San Diego State tonight, there have been very few true buzzer beaters in Final Four history. So we'll look forward to catching up with Pat Skerry talking about all of that. Nathan Ruiz will join us in just a couple of minutes from the Baltimore Sun. We'll talk some Orioles with him after they lost 2 out of 3 in Boston. And obviously the thing that happened on Saturday. But far from the only problem this weekend, obviously the pitching in general and the bullpen, and sort of a reminder that they're in a little bit of hurt without Dylan Tate and without Michael Givens to start the year, and they need those guys back badly. So we'll talk to Nathan Ruiz about all that. Jeremy Conn joins us later on in the program, as he always does on Monday. But we begin with an update to the Lamar-O-Meter. It's brought to you by Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports. As I mentioned, this crazy person, Stan the Fan, whatever the hell he was thinking, I think he might. Did we drug test I know we do
no,
that
we
every day where I have to come in with a hand you my urine every morning, and I don't know what you do with it exactly. I never really got to the bottom of that.
I do not test it.
Kind of strange. Did you have Stan do that on Friday?
No, I didn't. Yeah.
He bumped it up to 78%. And I get it. Look, there was nothing really that came out this weekend. I'll be honest, hanging around Ed Block, I talked to a few of the guys and just sort of got some of their thoughts on everything. I was talking to Jacoby Myers a little bit. Nothing that jumps out at me that would significantly change. There was no news over the course of the weekend. I did say that baseball season starting would be good for us because we would be slightly less obsessed on a day-to-day basis. And you would think that no news would be good news, right? You would say, hey, no news means you're a bit closer. But I'll keep coming back to the same thing that I said, and we talked about this yesterday when Rita and I were on 105.7 The Fan. You guys that want to convince yourself that this ends easily and simply, there's never a market for Lamar Jackson. He sticks his tail between his legs, comes crawling back, accepts whatever offer the Ravens still have on the table at that point. Maybe that's how it works. Considering how deep we are into this thing, for me to assume that, I'll continue to say I can't do it. I can't assume that this is just going to end that way. Now, are the Ravens prepared to do something to make Lamar Jackson feel more whole in the process? Does Lamar say, look, I'll come back and I don't want to sit out the year. I don't want to give up $32 million, but I ain't showing up to the week of the first game at the earliest in attempt to get them to add more to even a one-year contract that he would play under. I know one of the stories that percolated this weekend was that Darius Slay says that he was, and I don't know if I can recreate his hand gestures, this close, whatever it was. Darius Slay says he was in talks with the Ravens, and he says he was very close to signing as a Raven, which is interesting because Darius Slay was a fairly big-ticket item this offseason. Even into his 30s, Darius Slay, I believe, got $14 million per for 3 years. And I don't remember how much of that was guaranteed. For the Ravens to have been in on Darius Slay, they couldn't have assumed that Darius Slay was only going to cost them $2 million. Even for them to talk to him, they would have had to have been prepared to spend real money on Darius Slay. Now, they didn't go as far as the Eagles are willing to go, and that's probably because they're still hampered by everything they've done to make sure they can bring Lamar Jackson back. Jacoby Myers told me that he talked to the Ravens. Makes sense. The Ravens have a desperate need at wide receiver. He didn't want to go too far down the road. He just wanted to kind of say, hey, look, Vegas was perfect for me. I've been with Josh McDaniels in New England. He's my guy. I kind of trust him. That was the spot that I wanted to be. So I didn't get too much out of him about, was there an offer on the table? How much would it have been for? Would you have even considered it not knowing? He just kept kind of going back to, look, Vegas was the spot for me. Fine. Understandable. I don't know how that exchange rate works for a 26-year-old in Vegas. $33 million doesn't go quite as far there.
It'll go far enough.
And I don't know how any of that affects. The Ravens needed a second cornerback no matter what. No matter what. We'll see if they can still work out with Marcus Peters to bring him back. They needed a second outside cornerback. They would, frankly, like to have three. Maybe they still trust Brandon Stevens as one of those three, and so they really only need one more. Because they would like to be able to move Marlon Humphrey inside when circumstances dictate, because he's very good at that. All this is to say there was nothing overwhelming. I don't think that Darius Slay unveiling that the Ravens were in on him changes much of anything about Lamar Jackson thing. The Ravens still have done absolutely nothing in this offseason. They have been kind of slaves to, we have to have Lamar Jackson back. So this is merely a kind of course correction for me. That's all this is.
You're going to negate what Stan did?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back a little bit. 72% is where I am. 72%.
Still higher than your last.
It's still higher than my last one, and that reflects the, every day that goes by, we're another day without there being updates. But I do still think we have to be fair about this still has to have some sort of conclusion. There has to be something that happens, whatever it is, one way or another. And I still don't know what that path is. I still have not had that path presented to me for how this ends with Lamar Jackson being happy to play quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens this season. And again, he might not be happy. He might just not have another choice. That might ultimately be how it ends, is that there's no other option. But Lamar-O-Meter moves to 72%. Lamar-O-Meter brought to you by Glory Days Grill. Great food, good sports. All right, let's spend a couple of minutes before Nathan Ruiz joins us. We will talk about the other story of the weekend, which was, of course, the first weekend for the Birds. Today's show is also brought to you by Guilford Hall Brewery. Tonight is the night for the title game. We were just talking about it. San Diego State and UConn play for college basketball's national championship, and Guilford Hall Brewery in Station North is the place to be for the title game. The game will air on Guilford Hall's 22-foot screen with food and drink specials during the game, including all-you-can-drink beer for just $25. If you haven't been to Guilford Hall Brewery yet, this is a great chance for you to check it out. See you at Guilford Hall tonight for the college basketball title game. Obviously, quite a disappointing way for the last 2 days to go. Everything from the ninth inning Saturday on, really disappointing. And if we're being honest, the disappointment began before the ninth inning because the Orioles were up 7-1 on Saturday, and it all went away in a hurry. I bring up the bullpen. The bullpen is clearly a concern. It was asked of me this weekend, could DL Hall have helped? I don't know. There's two different conversations there, right? There's the first conversation of where should DL Hall be. The Orioles decided to send him back down to stretch him out further and to continue working him as a starter. That's their decision. It's an interesting one, given that they appear to have, for the first time, a fair amount of depth when it comes to starting pitching. I know you might be kind of giggling about that, considering how it went for the first 3 days. And their need, more noticeably at the beginning of the year, is in the bullpen. But I also get it. He missed a lot of the spring. He only made a couple appearances. I don't know that you would be comfortable with DL Hall anywhere at the major league level right now. I don't know that I could say DL Hall would have made the difference over the first couple of days of the season. The reality is it's not the end of the world to lose 2 out of 3 on the road in Boston. It wasn't a disastrous weekend.
But it was just
You can sit in here, Stan. You can sit in here and talk to us. It's fine. Stan's here. He's having some. You can sit in and talk with us. I apologize. I'm not good at this any longer. I'm not good at doing two things at once. But I used to be really good at this. I used to be absolutely every now and then. Every now and then, I'm still capable of it, but I am not as good as I once was about doing two things at once. I don't think DL Hall necessarily would have made the difference in the weekend, and I don't think that it's the end of the world that they lost 2 out of 3 in Boston. I will say, and I think Nathan Ruiz is about to join us, wrote about it. Like, the reality is that game on Saturday could end up being very significant. I mean, we can't hide from that. Any game that you lose this year when you're a team that's expected to kind of be on the margins for the season, any one game could end up mattering significantly in this process. So it might very well be that we get to the end of the year, the Orioles are a game back going into the final week, and we're all sitting there saying, oh, my God, if Ryan McKenna had just caught that ball. Like, it's totally possible. Now, to put the entire season on Ryan McKenna is unfair.
On April 2nd.
Correct. Drastically unfair.
April 1st.
But that's the reality is we don't think it's likely that the Orioles are going to be so good that any single game might not matter. And we don't think that they're going to be so bad that any single game might not matter. We think they're going to be in the margins where it's going to be Ryan McKenna this time. In 3 weeks, it might be
Cino Perez.
Yeah, correct. Or someone who was supposed to put a bunt down in a certain situation that couldn't get a stupid bunt down, or someone that got picked off, or some other toot bland getting thrown out on the base pass like a nincompoop. that type of thing can happen at any point during the course of the year. This one is the first one that occurs during the course of the season, and it's a little bit trickier because there's not as much good built up with Ryan McKenna. There's not as much. A lot of people would say, really, why was Ryan McKenna on the team to begin with? Why couldn't you have brought somebody with you that could have helped a little bit more from an offensive perspective? If Ryan McKenna is only here to be a defensive player, clearly this is even worse. It's frustrating. There's no getting around it. There's not enough goodwill built up with Ryan McKenna for us to say, okay, hey, man, he gets this one. It's going to happen. Other guys are going to make mistakes during the course of the year. This one stands out for a bunch of reasons, not the least of which is how little Ryan McKenna has to offer right now as a Major League Baseball player. Now, to be fair, he also made a hell of a catch.
Yes.
Like, we can't ignore that. Like, give a take of the way in that point. Like, he did make a damn good catch as well. But you're going to forget about that one by next week. By next week, you will have forgotten about that.
I forgot about it, about 2 hours later.
100%. Well, no, you didn't think about it the same way. You still remember it. By next week, you have totally forgotten about it. It will be a little bit longer before we forget about Ryan McKenna just dropping a pop-up, just flat out dropping a pop-up, which you do not see every day. Certainly not in those circumstances. Is it Ryan McKenna's fault that you couldn't just get the next out and go win the game? Not at all. You got every opportunity. Just go strike out Duvall, game's over. We never think about Ryan McKenna dropping a pop-up ever again. But it's tough because there's just not a lot that Ryan McKenna does that makes you say, that justifies why it is that you can live with the fact that he made this one mistake. Yesterday, it was frustrating for the Orioles to bounce back, hit those 2 home runs, and get themselves right back in the game, only for it to dissipate seconds later. I mean, seconds later. Cole Irvin, not impressive, obviously. Yes, Stan.
You think this would be a good time for the Orioles to extend Ryan McKenna?
You think this is the moment
like
they announced they bought out his
7-year
arbitration
deal,
year?
like $61 million.
Well, Glenn got very excited that he thought McKenna was no longer on the team.
No. So everybody misread what I was doing. I was just trying to make the joke.
Okay.
There was a joke that I was making that's an internet trope, and I was trying to make a joke about what happened. Right. I did get got in the process, but it wasn't because I was rooting for Ryan McKenna to get sent down. I didn't want him to be I didn't think even there was a world where he was going to get sent down. I just wanted to react with that internet trope of the joke yesterday.
I honestly thought he might have been starting in left field the next day.
Oh, it's some sort of statement from Brandon Hyde, like we
yeah.
still trust the guy, we still believe in the guy, we want to have him right back out there. There's something to be said for that. But managers do that all the time, and it wouldn't have bothered me. It bothers me much more. We talk about the need for shutdown innings. We almost side-eye the term in baseball, but my God, would that have been a spot for a shutdown inning yesterday? Like, for it to make a statement and to say something. Again, I don't want to give too much importance to these games just because they're the first. They just also happen to be the only sample size that we have at the moment. They're the only games that have been played, so we can only react to the games that we have. It would have been really nice for that to have occurred. Boston is a difficult place. The weather stunk. It definitely seemed the outfield defense it wasn't just Ryan McKenna. Going back to Thursday, the outfield defense was wretched.
Yeah.
I mean, wretched in this series.
They weren't doing enough fly ball practice in Florida, I guess.
Well, I don't think you can replicate in Florida what the conditions were like in Boston on Thursday in particular. And it was still cold throughout the course of the weekend. It was an unpleasant time for pitchers. I had some friends that were up at the game that were like, dude, it was not fun. And the pitchers clearly were impacted by that a little bit, but just a gross kind of weekend, and one that you hope doesn't end up mattering at some point, but you just never know for a team that's likely to live in the margins as the season goes on. We'll talk about it more here in 1 minute with Nathan Ruiz. Anything, Stan, did you have anything that jumped out at you from this weekend real quick?
Aside from the power outage in my neighborhood.
Yes, that's why Stan is here.
One of 24 families that are on this one specific
Did a
grid.
tree?
A tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a generator.
Mm-hmm.
10 o'clock last night, the generator.
Are you
goes off.
serious?
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's
Yikes.
pitch black. I had to hunt and scour for candles. Jane was already sleeping, but I knew when she had to get
Oh,
up,
yeah,
had to be
100%.
some lighter, she would have freaked out.
Understandably so. My word. All right. Well, hopefully, by the time we get to this point, or we get to later in the day, that'll all be taken care of. Hopefully that's the case.
I'm not very optimistic it'll be taken care of today.
That's a nightmare. That is a nightmare, my friend. Well, I'm sorry you're going through that. That is no fun. I was not aware of how crazy the winds and the storms were while I was gone this weekend. I got home, and my children's trampoline was in my neighbor's yard, which was my children's trampoline was legitimately, and I don't. Where I live, we don't really have neighbors.
Well, don't they?
That's
now,
a hell of a way.
Don't your neighbors now own it?
I believe that is possession is 9/10
the
law. That is a great point. It is now their children's trampoline, I believe.
And we can steal it back one night.
Well, we got it. I went ahead and went over. I like my neighbor. Actually played lacrosse at Navy a few years ago. He's a really good guy named Jay, and I didn't even get a text from him. I got nothing. I'm just looking around like, what the hell is going on around here? My grill cover, I believe, was on his front porch. Like, I don't know.
Use another grill cover.
Yeah, correct. So I went over and retrieved things when I got back home this weekend after some crazy, crazy wind in the Baltimore area. All right. Today's show brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Joining us now after the Orioles weekend in Boston, he covers the Birds for the Baltimore Sun. He's our friend Nathan Ruiz, and he's back with us here on GCR. Nathan, it's Glenn. It's great to catch up with you as always. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Nathan, you wrote something that really jumped off the page at me, man, which is, like, I don't want to overreact to anything that happened this weekend. It's a 3-game sample size in a 162-game season, right? Like, it can't matter all that much. But it was kind of a reminder of a team that's living in the margins from game to game and living in the margins all season long. And any one of these things could end up being the difference in how we go back and reflect and look about the Orioles at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this isn't a team that's going to go, 105 and 57 and run away with a division title. At least it's not built to do that. They designed a team that if it made the postseason, it would be likely as a wild card team. It would be a team that would be fighting for its playoff hopes all season long. And in that sense, each game it plays is going to matter. And so if we look back at the end of the season and this team misses, the playoffs by a game or two, I don't think it would necessarily be fair to point back to the 2 games they lost in Boston and say, well, those are the 2 games.
Right.
They're going to lose a lot more games. They're going to win a lot more games. But each game matters. If this team needs to capitalize on every opportunity it has, it's not necessarily one that, like I said, is going to be able to run away with anything. Each win is going to matter. We saw it last season. This was a team that surprisingly finished 3 games out of a playoff spot, finishing 3 games behind a team that they lost to, in the first 3 games of the season. Got swept by the Tampa Bay Rays to open the season, and then both those teams won 83 games the rest of the way. So each game is going to matter in the end. It's not going to be fair to point to a specific game and say, well, that's the one that cost them if anything happens, and at the end of the season, they might make the postseason, and this series loss to open the year might just be a footnote. And so it's just to say, hey, this team needs to win every game it can. That's their goal. They want to win every game in front of them, and when they don't do that, then it's going to hurt those playoff chances.
There will, of course, always be still overreaction and second-guessing because this is all we have to work with. These are the only 3 games that have been played. And uniquely, even more so than yesterday, what happened on Saturday will likely stand out for some time because, a routine play is made and the game is over. The overreaction is, well, why was Ryan McKenna on this team to begin with? He doesn't offer you anything. You got Taron Vavra, who could have play in the outfield. And, what is the point of this? Is that unfair to be second-guessing Ryan McKenna's spot on the team because of one mistake?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of, at least what I saw went Ryan McKenna's way this weekend was really unfair. I mean, he's on this team to make those type of plays. I understand people's frustration because obviously it's a play that you very clearly could say cost them the game. If Adam Duvall doesn't hit a home run 2 pitches later, then maybe we forget about it a little bit. That's something else to think about here. But, Ryan McKenna is going to get a lot more opportunities on this team. He is kind of that, that 5th outfielder, that defensive replacement, that pinch runner. We saw him handle that role really well. We saw him handle playing left field at Fenway Park really well in 5 innings earlier. He makes a diving catch out and left behind Mike Baumann. And so he's going to continue to get opportunities. It's really unfortunate what happened. As Brandon Hyde put it, no one felt worse about it in the Orioles clubhouse than Ryan McKenna did. And so it's just one of those things that happens in baseball. We saw it happen, just last season when the Orioles were on the other side of it. Adam Engel of the Chicago White Sox dropped a foul ball in foul territory, and a fly ball in foul territory, and Kyle Stowers ends up hitting a game-tying home run in a game the Orioles win. So these kind of things happen to Major League Baseball players. It's unfortunate. They're on a really big stage. Ryan McKenna's from, the New England area, has some family there apparently. So just a really tough situation for him. I understand people's frustration, but at the same time, he has value to this team. I'm not sure necessarily who you would have put on the team over him in terms of that role. You could have made an argument for, you look at the springs that Josh Lester, Franchi Cordero, Ryan O'Hearn had. But in terms of defensive profile, they're not necessarily the same type of player. They were guys who were more competing with Kyle Stowers to be that left-handed corner bat. Like I said, Ryan McKenna is going to continue to get opportunities on his team. It's really unfortunate what happened Saturday, but he'll move past it. The Orioles move past it, and I'm sure the next time they have a lead in the late innings, Ryan McKenna will be out in the outfield.
Well, and it's look, I completely understand everything that you just said, and I think you're 100% right about it. I guess what I would say, only in response, would be that this type of thing, you wonder if it carries over at all for someone who's not going to get as many opportunities to make impact. Griffin asked an interesting question, which was would you be surprised that maybe Brandon Hyde didn't go out of his way to try to get Ryan McKenna back out into the game yesterday in order to wipe the taste out of his mouth? Is there any potential carryover effect for someone who isn't playing every day, that doesn't have the opportunity to just go out and get 3 hits and feel good about himself immediately?
No, I think it's a good sign, honestly, that Brandon Hyde didn't put Ryan McKenna in the lineup yesterday. He put the lineup out there that he thought gave them the best chance to win the game, which I know some people have their issues with game to game, basically every game when it comes to Brandon Hyde's lineups. But this wasn't something where he went out there and said, well, I need to make Ryan McKenna feel good. Let's make sure he's in today's lineup in a right matchup that isn't advantageous to us. He went out and said, this is the lineup that's best for me. Now, if the Orioles had been leading late in that game, Ryan McKenna would have been out in left field. He's going to get that opportunity. If they're leading tonight in the 9th inning, 8th, 9th inning, he's going to be out in left field, I'm sure, or right field, however they decide to set the defensive alignment. But he's going to continue to get opportunities. Obviously, you do worry, I guess, until he gets that next opportunity. He is just sitting on the last thing he did on the field was what happened Saturday's 9th inning. But he's a Major League Baseball player. He's indulged. He's played baseball for a long time. I'm sure there have been other pop flies that Ryan McKenna has dropped. None of them have been to that magnitude.
Yep.
But he'll move past it. I think that these guys are they're tough mentally. They obviously go through things over the course of a season, but he'll move past it. I have to imagine that the next fly ball hit to him will be caught, and it'll be nonchalant, and he won't make a big deal about it.
It won't be eventful in any way. We'll barely even notice it. Nathan
I'm
Ruiz,
probably jinxing him right there.
Yeah,
That's
right,
I probably shouldn't be saying that, but we'll see what happens.
This is going to turn into like a TikTok the next time he drops a pop up, and you will be the curse of it. Nathan Ruiz is with us here on GCR. Nathan, one of the other questions that was asked of me, given the struggles of the bullpen this weekend, and obviously the big storyline is they're without Michael Gibbons, they're without Dylan Tate, and that's significant. There's no getting around it. But the other thing that was brought up, by a couple people is, could it have helped to have had DL Hall available to you? Or, I don't think that Grayson Rodriguez would ever have been out of the bullpen, but if you had been piggybacking with Grayson Rodriguez, could you have had another arm, a Tyler Wells, perhaps available to you at this point? Is there any reason to second-guess those decisions, given how thin the Orioles' bullpen appears to be to start the season?
Well, I think it was, to your point about the injuries with Gibbons and Tate, it was always going to be a little thin to start the year. Now, you could make the argument of, if DL Hall or Grayson Rodriguez would have been in the rotation. So I guess the argument would have been if Grayson is the 5th starter and Tyler Wells is then in the bullpen. You can make any machinations, but it's not like the guys who – Logan Galassi was one of the last guys to make this team, and he was like the 8th inning guy basically in this weekend series, and he was asked, without Gibbons, without Tate, with Brian Baker struggling a little bit, Logan Galassi really became that 8th inning guy really quickly, really unexpectedly. And so I think that, that he probably would have been one of the guys who didn't make it. And so this team the messaging has been really since the winter meetings in December, they are not going to, juke the 2023 team's playoff odds. They're going to do what they believe is best for each player in this organization. For DL Hall, that's having him start the year in AAA, get stretched out as a starter, and go from there. for Grayson Rodriguez, they determined that that was getting more time in AAA. And you saw in his first outing for Norfolk on Friday that he was not sharp. He did not get past the fourth inning again. He walked 4 guys, really uncharacteristic. They want to get him right. The best thing for the 2023 Orioles, in the Orioles' viewpoint, is to have Dale Hall continue to be a starter, is to have Grayson Rodriguez get back to himself at AAA. And they believe in Tyler Wells. Like, Tyler Wells wasn't dominant in spring training, but he pitched well. And Mike Baumann, they liked what he showed as a reliever after moving into that type of role.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously like what they've seen out of Logan Gillespie with him making the team, and now, like I said, basically being a setup guy. So there's a lot of second guessing that can happen, but this team is trying to, take advantage of the opportunity that's in front of it without necessarily altering the career paths of some of its young pitchers.
That's obviously clear that that's their plan. And I don't know, how do you measure those things for them to say, hey, we got to think about not just now but the future as well. Completely understand. It's why somebody else would probably step in and say, well, maybe you should have signed one more guy at that point. Then there is no correct answer to any of this. It's all merely fodder for what it is that I do, Nathan, and that's the reason why we do this. I will say I think the race between Adley Rutschman and Adam Frazier to be AL MVP really is shaping up to be electric all season long.
Yeah, 2 guys who had really good weekends. Obviously, Adley was more of a top half, bottom half type of situation. Really great start, really quiet ending. But, no, yeah, I mean, to watch what he did opening day and kind of just make an early statement about, like, yeah, this guy's really good, and he's going to mean a lot to this team for a long time, hopefully. And so to see him do that and really kind of just nonchalantly, first swing of the year is a home run, just 4 opposite way singles, and then obviously quieted a bit as the weekend went on, but obviously a really impressive opening day for him. And then Adam Frazier was really just hitting the ball over the park, hitting the ball hard, obviously not really known a ton for his power, and gets a home run in his first series as an Oriole, adds 3 doubles. And so I think that, he's a guy who is going to be under some pressure this season, I think, when the Orioles have this kind of core of infield talent. And obviously he's in maybe a different situation than a Jorge Mateo or Ramon Arias, as a guy who's getting, a free agent salary, a guy who hits left-handed, a guy who's a little more veteran, a little more experienced. But when you have Jordan Westburg, Joey Ortiz, and Connor Norby coming, and
Yep.
Westburg and Norby both hitting really well for Norfolk over the weekend. So it's going to be interesting to watch how he kind of handles that, how the other 2 infielders all handle that. But obviously, the start you want to see if you're Adam Frazier and the Orioles.
No question about it. And then hopefully, if worst case scenario, maybe he turns himself into a valuable chip for this team if some of those guys are starting to get ready by the time we get to the summer. Nathan Ruiz, before I let you go, just the impact of the weather this weekend for those of us that weren't up there, as far as the pitching struggling as much as it did, how much of that do you think was just about how brutal the conditions were in Boston?
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw it on both sides. Like, obviously, I think it came up quite a bit, maybe more than it directly affected things. Like, if you want to look at the outfield situations, you want to look at this or that, like, both teams had to deal with it, And so it was cold. It was rainy. I don't think it was necessarily comfortable for anyone after spending a month and a half in Florida, but it's something that both teams had to deal with. You kind of see that in the end results, the final scores of all games. The Orioles scored 23 runs and win 1 game. But yeah, both teams had to put up with it. And I think, obviously their next series is in a very hot Texas DFW area where they'll play in a domed ballpark. So that won't be a factor, and maybe we'll get a better idea, a more clear picture of this Orioles pitching staff. They're not going to allow 9 runs per game for the rest of the season, just like they weren't going to steal 5 bases per game for the rest of the season. So I think maybe we'll get a clearer picture by the end of this week.
I'm still not sure that Ricky Henderson's single-season record isn't going down at some point this year. I'm not certain of it. At Nathan S. Ruiz on Twitter is how you follow him. Of course, the Baltimore Sun, BaltimoreSun.com to see all of his stuff. Nathan, really appreciate you hopping on with us for a minute this morning, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Nathan Ruiz, Baltimore Sun, with us here on GCR. After the Orioles do indeed lose 2 out of 3 in Boston to open up the season, their series in Arlington gets underway tonight at 8 o'clock with Kyle Bradish on the mound against John Gray. Today's show also brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Baseball season is here, and for the first time in history, you can bet from your phone in Maryland. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers for the best sportsbook offers and incentives so you can start winning today. Get 5 second-chance bets at PointsBet when you deposit and bet your first $50. Just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers to claim your incentive. We're going to switch gears, talk a little college basketball when we come back in. Pat Skerry is going to join us. He was named Skip Prosser Man of the Year which is a very significant honor. Plus, we'll talk a little bit about the title game tonight. All that on the way. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles phenom Gunnar Henderson, breaking down how he was able to become the top prospect in baseball at such a young age, and what could be next in his first full MLB season. Also inside, we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's college programs across the state, and Bo Smoka breaks down another year of wide receiver issues for the Ravens. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Conn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
Look, I warned you last week that once we got to the end of last week, I couldn't no longer guarantee that your orders from Birdland Sports would definitely make it in time for opening day. It's still possible. I have seen how quickly Josh Soroka. By the way, we need to pick last week's winner. I don't think you ever sent me that.
I think I do have a winner.
All right.
I didn't want to disturb your vacation.
All well and good. All well and good. Josh has turned things around really quickly, so it's totally possible that if you get your order in today, right now, he'll still get it to you by Thursday morning. It's really still possible, but I can't guarantee it any longer. So still have incredible gear, awesome shirts. You see the 2023 World Series champ shirts. I'm definitely going to be wearing my Birds Are Coming shirt on Thursday in the style of Omar from The Wire. That's going to happen. It's all available at birdlandsports.com. Again, birdlandsports.com is the website. So many cool designs. I know players have been loving these shirts and have been wearing them all spring long. If you haven't at least looked to check it out and see if there's something that you would love at birdlandsports.com, go wander over there today. For Birds fans, by Birds fans, prices much more affordable than the big guys, but you lose none of the quality of the shirts, and yet you get so many cooler and more fun designs than the big guys offer you. Again, birdlandsports.com is the website. Get your order in. This isn't bad, from Joe. Joe says, Glenn Ryan McKenna has the opportunity to not be remembered in the same. For Joe, Ryan McKenna will never be remembered in the same way as Lee Evans or Billy Cundiff. That happened in the AFC Championship game. This happened in the second game of the year. I get it. I understand. It's recency bias. It's all of it.
They do say that. It goes Game 7 World Series.
Right, correct. Game 2 of the year. Those are the two ones that we just think about all the time. I understand we're very frustrated. I had my friend Mike Filippelli, who's worked everywhere in this market, including CBM and the Bay and places like that over the years. Mike Filippelli screaming at me on Saturday night, 2 hands! You learned that in Little League. 2 hands to catch them. I get it. I get it, Mike. I get it. I understand. It's very frustrating. We're not happy about it. It's a bad taste in our mouth. If the Orioles had turned around and won yesterday, we would have probably not cared nearly as much today. If they win tonight, we'll probably move on with our lives and not think about it a whole lot more from there. It's just what we have. That's the way that it goes. All right. Let's switch gears a little bit this morning. This man received a very significant honor last week, and you know how highly we think of him and the program that he has built over at Towson University, the consistency on the floor, but also doing the right thing away from the floor and being a valuable part of this community. He's taken time to help us out with our charity endeavors over the years, and you know how committed he has been to trying to benefit those that are battling autism and trying to make the world a better place for those that have autism. All of those efforts went noticed, and he was named the Skip Prosser Man of the Year in college basketball last week. He is Towson basketball coach Pat Skerry, and he is back with us now here on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn. It's always great to catch up. Thank you for taking the time, and congratulations on a major honor.
I appreciate you having me on, my friend. I'm pretty sure I'm not worthy of that, but I do appreciate they recognize that we've been trying to, help with the awareness efforts, and hopefully it's something we can continue to make better. But it's always good to talk some ball with you, my friend.
It's always great to catch up with you, Coach. Can you put what you just said? Skip Prosser is such a revered figure in this sport. And, of course, everybody knows Skip Prosser, once upon a time, was right here at Loyola years ago. To receive this recognition, like what goes through – I know that you would like to be talking about your third straight trip to the NCAA tournament, right? Like I know that would be the conversation you'd like to be having at the moment. But to receive that type of honor and for people to be aware of what it is that you and your program are all about at Towson, can you put that into words?
Well, I mean, I'm appreciative of it and humbled by it. I think that I know that our university, our athletic department, and certainly our men's basketball program, we do preach inclusivity. Our guys in our department perform a lot of community service hours. It's something that has been a big institutional priority that, our current athletic director, Steve Eigenbrod, has pushed, as did our last athletic director, Tim Leonard. So I'm proud that our guys have done their part. We've run our awareness game on a national level, and that's taken I'm getting some credit for it, but the credit really belongs to the NABC and the Women's Basketball Coaches Association that has helped push it out as Autism Speaks. The coach in me appreciates College Insider recognizing that, but also the coach in me is like, how do we make this thing better? Because that's kind of what you try to do as a coach, try to improve things. So that's really the next step, and we've got some work to do in that area. But I do appreciate them helping with it. Hopefully, it's something that we can use to improve the game.
How do you make it? I don't even know how you can do that, Coach. Like how do you...
Well, honestly, what we really need, and there are some, rock star coaches that I think are really good guys. We need to figure out how to get he's a good friend, Ed Cooley at Georgetown, or Coach Willard. We need to get a early season, non-conference doubleheader. Obviously, Towson would love to be a part of that, but that's not the be-all, end-all. We need to get something off the ground where we could get some sponsorships and TV behind it, and try to copy a little bit the Coaches versus Cancer. That would be the next step. I need help with that.
Well, I don't think I'm going to be the guy to make the difference, but I'm willing to put it out there. And I do happen to know there's a nice brand new building right here in Baltimore that maybe would be
would be unbelievable.
Pretty good host for something like that, right?
Yep. And look, it's like I said, there are some. It's not easy for guys at that level to give up home games, and I totally get that. But if we can get some television behind it, then I think it's possible. Some of these guys are really good guys, and they might be willing to do that.
Well, let's make it happen. I don't know what I can do to help, Coach, but you have my
appreciate it.
It'd be great for the
having
cause.
me on and getting that out there is helpful. You know what I mean?
It'd be great for the cause, obviously. I think it'd be great for local college basketball to have something like that. I think it would be an incredible day to support college basketball.
Well, we've heard some rumblings that they wanted, the new ownership down there. We went down for the kickoff event, my AD, Steve and I, and really good people, and then sound like they wanted to try to get some college basketball stuff in there, which obviously we would love to play. We love playing in those neutral games. So it sounds like some of that's possible. Maybe we could figure out how to tie this in. You just got to try to, I think, connect the right people and see how to kind of push it forward.
I love the sounds of it. We got to rewrite some of the history you've had in that building too, Coach. We gotta go back.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep. We gotta go back and do that somehow, some way. Pat Skerry is with us here on GCR, the man of the year, the Skip Prosser Man of the Year from College Insider, chatting with us this morning. Coach, just to kind of button up, we talked a couple times during the course of the season. Is it difficult for everything that you've been able to accomplish, for the way that you have turned this program around? I try to remind. I got a producer right now who's a Towson alum, and he can't fathom. He has no ability to really understand just how bad it was when you got here. The amount of pride that I know you have in what you guys have done as a program. How frustrating is it, to have Jason get hurt this year and to be so close and to have this great game against one of the best teams in the country in Charleston and for it not go your way? I know it's got to be difficult because internally how much good there's been and how much good you've done, but you also know there are still so many people who say, yeah, but when are you going to get to the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, but that's what you sign up for. I would like more of those people to get behind our program. If you throw out COVID, I'm aware of 7 of the last 10 years we've been top 3 in our conference, and we've finally been able to win the regular season title. And I get what we're judged by. My challenge to those people that care about Towson in this new age of recruiting, what are we doing to support our student athletes? Let's go. Let's get behind that. There's opportunities and avenues to do that now, so that when we bring in talented student athletes that represent our university the right way, that we're supporting them. That's the next step for us. I've got a very high-speed, intelligent athletic director that's making some good changes in here and that needed. So hopefully we're going to be able to do that. Ultimately we've got to win the conference tournament. That's what the goal is. That's what drives us every day. But I also believe that it's important that we're in a position. You can't have a lousy, non-competitive program and hope to play well for 3 days. I don't think anyone wants that either.
No.
So, what we've been able to sustain through, half dozen presidents and 4 ADs and, to be a competitive team. And now is a great time as any for us to really, get involved with Towson athletics and Towson men's basketball and try to push this thing forward.
I know you referenced that sort of new era of recruiting, and obviously NIL is at the center of that, and the opportunity for local businesses, folks like that, to step up to try to help out athletes. On the flip side of that, Nicholas Timberlake was such an incredible part of what you guys have done for the last few years, and was such an important piece. How, is it difficult for you to say, hey, I've got to be willing to step back and say, I understand. How do you now handle, obviously you'd like to, who wouldn't want to have Nick Timberlake back on a team for another year next year, but knowing he wants to be able to do some things, how do you kind of handle all of the aspects of being appreciative, wanting to have guys stick around for 4 or 5 years right now, but knowing there are things that you can do at other levels that guys might want to go experience?
Well, no, we're 1,000%. Nick's my guy, and we're certainly appreciative of him. First we got unbelievable news that Charles Thompson's coming back, and if you really study
that is unbelievable
analytics,
wow.
Yeah, if you study analytics like we do, you'd know that he is the most valuable guy we had as far as affecting winning on both sides of the ball. So that was a big thing for us. We never planned on Nick coming back. He did a great job for us. He's been here 5 years. He's already graduated a year ago. As far as him, whether he decides to play at another school and if that has something that we don't, that's great. If he decides to play professionally, that's great as well. What I would say is that we've got 8 guys that we plan on bringing back that were in the program, and starting with Charles, who's now has been a 2-time All-League player, a 3-time All-Defensive player, and really symbolizes what you'd want a Towson student athlete to be like. That he'd be a great guy to get behind and support.
Oh, there's no question. He's a monster. I mean, I apologize, Coach. I had missed that news yesterday. That is incredibly significant, and I think it goes a long way to I'm sure as you're out like this in this new world of recruiting where you're out, there are transfers in the portal, there are guys you're talking about. I am sure that there are a lot of people that say, oh, if Charles is sticking around, man, there's a real opportunity to do something there. Let's go.
Well, we certainly hope so. We expect big jumps from, Conway and Hicks and May and Bieku and we Chase Parr is planning on coming back. People forget that he was hurt most of the year, and we're slowly, surely getting there. So, you touched on it earlier, and I forgot I did not to avoid it. Yeah, there's always a piece here with the injury that, Jason and coulda, woulda, shoulda, and that's unfortunate because, he was such a good quarterback and an all-league player. In a lot of ways, I'm incredibly proud of our group because they showed up every night. And just didn't lay down, and we won 21 games. But certainly we lost a lot of 1 or 2 possession games where, there's a piece of that when you sit there at night trying to figure out how to get your team better. That wish you had your quarterback. But unfortunately, injuries are part of the game.
No question. That's the way it goes. I get it, and you can't make excuses. You brought up Christian May. Dude, I don't know what it is. So I bring my kids out for a lot of games, Coach, and I feel like every game that I was at with the kids this season, the Monmouth game, the Charleston game, I saw a guy just sticking threes, and I'm like, man, he is right on the cusp of being a real difference maker, like a guy that can truly get things done and maybe grow into a consistent 10 double-digit type of scoring guy moving forward.
Well, he needs to, and for us to be where we expect to be next year. Comes from a great family. He has maybe as many tools in the toolbox as anyone we've had. And I've shown him some stuff on like Nick Timberlake, and he's ahead of where he was at that stage, and now he's got to continue to have that type of drive and focus daily. And we're off to a good start with that.
Like it.
But he's talented, and if we're going to be good, he's got to be good for us.
All right, who's going to win this game tonight, Coach?
Well, I've been going actually with, believe it or not, I picked UConn to be in the national title game. Now it was against Arizona, so that's not so. That wasn't so good.
You came 5 games short of that, but other than that,
yeah, I was only off by 5. That's pretty good for me. I think Connecticut wins, but in a harder game than people realize. San Diego State is very, very good. I think UConn's got to get out and transition, but they've also got to be prepared to kind of run through the mud. San Diego State's good. They got men. Tells you how good Charleston was, because really Charleston should have beat them.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a better game than people realize. I think the difference will be UConn, 2 things: Jackson, and then the big kid clinging off the bench.
How has this kind of happened with UConn? Like, what have you noticed has been – they're not just winning, they're suffocating. They're dominating. And I know they were really good all season long, and Snego's unbelievable, but what have they done that much better in this tournament that teams haven't even really been all that competitive against them?
Well, it's interesting how they played great early, and then they've played great late. They struggled. They came in 4th place. Think about that during the regular season, 4th in their league. That's the beauty of playing at that level, right? You can falter and then have time to kind of reset. I think right now is one, they're so efficient on offense. They're not just relying on ball screening, the pace of their cuts, their movement, and then they've got great depth. You know, they come at you in a lot of different ways. You know, it's the way they're playing right now. It's going to take a pretty close to a supreme effort for anyone to get past them. You know, it's certainly possible because the best team very rarely wins the whole thing. That's the beauty of the tournament. You know.
I'll wrap up with this, Coach, because it's something that's come up a lot. You referenced the way that basketball has changed in this new sort of era of recruiting. I've heard from a lot of people, hey, expect more years like this. Expect the tournament to be way more like this. You're not going to have the same dominant teams from the start of the season to the end of the season. You're not going to have 2 to 3 year dominant teams. There's going to be a lot more of teams that just happen to get it all together for a couple of weeks at the end of the year, and more tournaments where there might not be number 1 seeds in the Final Four, and there might be, you know, pure craziness the way that we saw this year. Do you think that's where we're headed in the future with the NCAA tournament, given the transfer portal, given, you know, all of those things?
I don't know. I think you're still dealing a little bit with the COVID year and people having an extra year and all that good stuff. You know, I think you know, the Florida Atlantic story is unbelievably amazing. And not enough has been said on that. But, you know, you're certainly leery of, you know, teams and programs like Miami. I mean, look at they've got really good players, and those players are there because of NIL. So, you know, you could make an argument that you can go out and put a pretty good team together if you're committed in that area.
That's a very good point, and it worked out quite well for them as they got to the Final Four. Pat Skerry, Skip Prosser, Man of the Year. Next time I just happen to bump into Kevin Willard somewhere, I'm putting a word in. We got to make this happen, man. I want it badly now that you've spoken it into existence. So now I want to see it occur.
Well, he's a great coach. He's doing a great job down there, and if we could find a way to get them to help behind something like that, that certainly would be outstanding.
That would be amazing for the entire community, and would obviously be amazing for what you're doing with Autism Speaks. Coach, congratulations. Well-deserved. Always appreciate taking the time for us. Great to catch up this morning, and we'll look forward to doing it again as we get closer to next season, all right?
Take care, my friend.
Pat Skerry, Towson basketball coach. Skip Prosser, Man of the Year, which is a significant honor and well-deserved. And obviously I know everybody related to Towson would like to see CAA title and that drought end and getting back to the NCAA tournament. But that is big news, getting Charles Thompson back. I thought it was sort of a fait accompli that, you know, the three of them were all back together for this year. Gibson, Timberlake, and Thompson, and then they would all kind of go their own way. Obviously, you know, different scenarios in there, but to get Charles Thompson back is
definitely big.
That's a big deal, man. Like, that is huge.
I mean, he was already arguably one of the best big men in the entire league.
No question.
Now he'll be able to, you know, get better. Yes.
I mean, it's just massive. There's no way around it. That is a massive Cam Holden. It's unfair for me not to include Cam Holden in that group that I'm talking about, right? Cam Holden couldn't come back, so that was never going to be an option for him. For them to get Charles Thompson, especially with Nick Timberlake gone, to say, nope, I want to stick around. I want to see this thing through. It does. I think, if anything, it limits how low your floor can be, right? Like, there's only so low that your floor can be with Charles Thompson. Now you add a couple more pieces, transfer to
Christian May's got another year under his belt.
I said that when we were talking. Like, when I was out, for whatever reason, it seemed like every game I went to this season, like, Christian May was specifically inspired by my presence and was just knocking down threes. And I'm like, yo, this dude, he can do this. And then I would watch other games and be like, where is Christian May?
The Nick Timberlake comparison is interesting because he does remind you a lot of Nick Timberlake.
Yeah, there's a lot of that there. I agree with that.
Gets up there and hits threes and plays defense. Like, it's
I certainly think that UConn's going to win this game tonight, and I think they're going to. I think they're going to win it somewhat comfortably. They have been so dominant throughout this tournament. Now, the one thing I'll point out is they had to play the second game on Saturday. There is historically at least a bit of an advantage for playing in the first game. This isn't like the lacrosse Final Four where the sport is so unbelievably physical that there's more of a toll that's taken by playing in that, second game. Of course, remember last year, Maryland had to wait out the weather delay on top of everything else on Saturday, so they had a very short turnaround, and you could see they were the best team by far in the country, and yet late in that championship game, they were struggling. This is basketball. This is not lacrosse. You're not getting beat on for 60 minutes. But I do still think that could, if there is a path to San Diego State, having a chance to be competitive with UConn tonight, it would have to involve UConn being a little bit more sluggish from having played in the second game. They are also benefiting from the fact that it's a late tip tonight that gives them a little bit more time. I keep forgetting it's a 9:20 tip for the national championship.
So it won't start until 9:45.
No, the tip is at 9:20.
Well, that's
tip.
what they say.
No, not they start the pregame at 9.
Okay.
So tip is supposed to be 9:20. Now,
All
I
right.
get it. Like if any of that stuff runs late, then it's going to be 9:23 or whatever. That's unbelievable. I got questions about why you're playing the women's championship game at 3:30. I don't know what the hell that was, and it's not because it impacted Rita and I yesterday. It's because
the Orioles were still playing.
You would think, whatever it is, you would just think that you would want that Sunday night television audience for your national championship game. Like you would think, well, if you're
or even
WrestleMania was on, but that's that's for I don't
really
know how much of crossover there is between the WrestleMania crowd and the women's championship game crowd. I still think the ratings will prove to be through the roof. And the ratings for Friday night were unbelievable for the semifinals. Mm-hmm. But I was very confused by why they would go to 3:30 on Sunday afternoon. It used to be that they played it because that was the first big Sunday night ESPN baseball game of the year, so they would play the game at like 6, leading into an 8 o'clock baseball game. But this game wasn't even on ESPN. It was on ABC. There was no reason why it couldn't have been on Sunday night.
I think the executives have kind of missed the boat. They're late to get on board with how popular the women's basketball sport is now.
To wit, this season in particular, I don't know that they understood what they were dealing with.
The one thing is, I don't recall it ever being on the main stage
on ABC,
on like ABC or NBC. So they caught up to it on one part. But I found that as like a real burial ground spot. It made no sense at all.
I thought it was nuts. And again, to your point, this season uniquely, and it's part of what I cover in the column today, this is looking like it might prove to be a transcendent moment in the history of women's basketball.
Yeah.
Griffin and I talked about it, Stan. As you were watching the tournament, you probably saw the same thing. NIL exists now in college sports, and yet no men's players were getting commercials.
Right.
None of them.
Right.
But you know who was? Aaliyah Boston was getting national commercials with Under Armour. Like the women's players were getting a lot of attention.
Dawn Staley was
obviously was a huge commercial. Yep.
Yeah.
So Dawn Staley did the Mike Krzyzewski commercial with Aflac.
Wasn't she in?
I thought that was Tamika Catchings that did the.
She was
commercial.
also. I think she was also. She was.
Okay, all right. Maybe it was both of them.
Was the one where the basketball falls into her cup of coffee.
Oh, so Tamika Catchings was the Steals one, right? That was the Steals one. Okay.
But
the other one was Dawn Staley.
Was
okay.
having a cup of coffee in the Steals one.
There was a moment that was unfolding in this year's women's tournament, and then this game on Friday night. Ironically, neither one of those teams ends up winning the national championship between Iowa and South Carolina. But now, both Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are back next year. Two absolute superstars, two now kind of pop culture figures, are going to be back next season. And every game they play is going to be kind of must-watch throughout the course of next year. There is a moment that is occurring, and if Paige Buchers is healthy for UConn, she goes right back into that conversation. We've kind of been stolen. Paige Buchers was a star of stars, and the injuries kind of derailed that. There is a moment that occurred. So the 3:30 thing stunk. It stunk to high heavens because Friday night, you could feel it. It was electric. And to build off of that with a Sunday night primetime national championship game Oh, would have been so. Now, look, you could tell if you were on social media yesterday, everybody was watching that game. Everyone was watching. They had the attention of the country. 2 bona fide superstars playing in that game. Big storylines. It was amazing. Everything about it was amazing. 9:20. I know this is the way that's always been with the men's championship game. They've always tipped it off late. They want to try to get the most of every time zone that they possibly can, but you lose the young folks in the East Coast with the 9:20 tip on a Monday night. There's no way of
the
getting
young
around
folks
that.
or the
and the old. You lose kids.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
lose, know, the older folks that say that's just never going to happen. Like, I'm never going to be staying up for a 9:20 tip off in a national championship game. Didn't Monday Night Football used to tip off at 9 o'clock or kick off at 9 o'clock?
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah, for years.
Another national, like the football national championship, felt like it always started at 9.
Yeah.
I mean, it kicked off at 9 o'clock for about 15, 18
Right,
years.
right.
I mean,
When it was on ABC, Monday Night Football was a 9 for years. Was a 9 o'clock for years. When I was a kid, I didn't get to watch Monday Night Football. When I was a child, the golden era of Monday Night Football that everybody refers to, I never got to watch any of it because the games were kicking off at 9 o'clock, and my father did not care. Like, it did not matter to him whatsoever that it was Monday Night Football and everybody was going to be talking about it. I could watch the highlights on SportsCenter the next morning before school. That was the way it was going to go for me. All right, when we come back in, some big news this morning in the world of combat sports that we will talk about. Ironically, I bring up that WrestleMania was this weekend. It involves the WWE, which is quite weird. But we'll get into that. Some other things I want to get to. Today's show also is brought to you. You know what? It's brought to you by Stan the Fan, but what I got to tell you is TBA. TBA for Stan this week. If you can get out and fix his power, then that might change Stan's schedule around a little bit. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. TBA for Stan the Fan this week. Thursday, do you have something planned?
Definitely have a show Thursday.
Okay.
Do not have the guest.
All right. I promise. It's going to be brilliant.
By the way, I tried. Yeah. Oh, actually, there is no Thursday show. I'm sorry.
It's opening day. Right, yeah. Thursday.
Wednesday is Passover. I was going to move it to Wednesday, but Passover is Wednesday, first night of Passover. Thursday, it's too risky with being at the
100%.
Oriole game.
Opening day, I get it.
So we'll take this off on Thursday, and we'll see if we get one in tonight. Luke and I are doing something at 2:45 today with my power rankings.
Okay, very good.
And then you had Jeff Zaribek on Thursday, past Thursday, too.
Obviously, if you missed that show, you can check it out. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. PressBoxOnline.com/video.
I sat in for some guy this past Friday.
Oh, really?
You didn't even hear me at the beginning of the show today.
Yes, I heard you.
Oh, you heard me?
Of course
okay.
I heard you.
I was trying to get you to come in and defend yourself.
I sat in for a guy who was telling me all along how much money Lamar was going to make. You know, how his value kept going up.
Is that what I was saying?
Yeah, you were saying that for about the last 6 months.
I was saying
every time the topic would come up, you kept telling me.
I was saying it couldn't go down. I was saying it couldn't go down. That it was the quarterback position.
Down.
Well, no, the Ravens' offer is still the offer, right? Like, it hasn't gone down. There just haven't been other offers. And to the point,
I'm not so sure the Ravens are offering that anymore.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
No one knows.
I don't believe they're going to do that to themselves. They've hurt themselves enough in this process to then try to play further ball with like Lamar Jackson on top of it.
Oh, you ready to accept it? Well,
yeah, right. I mean, my God, you haven't been able to improve your football team. You have sold your soul to getting this done with Lamar Jackson to then say, well, maybe we really have him in a place and can really double him over. Man, that is really hard to believe and almost would go to pure recklessness at that point. Like, it's the part that nobody wants to. I said this yesterday. Every time somebody wants to say, well, the Ravens have handled this brilliantly. Have you seen their wide receiver room? Have you seen what they haven't been able to do?
They don't have a quarterback, right?
You can say everything you want to say about how they maybe read the idea that there wouldn't be other offers on the table or that they could manipulate this by saying, hey, don't bother to make an offer because we're just going to match it anyway. You can give them whatever credit you want to give them. At the end of the day, their football team is worse than it was at the end of the year last year. It's a worse football team than what they had because they have been so dug in on this thing that they haven't been able to do anything else to improve their football team. If you think that's brilliant, I guess if you're really into negotiating and that's just sort of what gets your rocks off, like I can understand why you think that's brilliant. But for like trying to win football games, I ain't going to go with brilliant. That ain't going to be the way that I'm going to describe it because they are not a good enough football team, even if Lamar Jackson is happy to come back and play for them. They've done that to themselves in the course of this process. That's the reality of the circumstance. All right, we'll come back in. We got more to talk about. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Are you a diehard O's fan looking for the perfect way to show your team spirit? Look no further than Birdland Sports. Birdland Sports is a small business run by fans for fans. They offer a wide variety of unofficial O's merchandise, from the Birds Are Coming tees to player cartoon shirts and more. And the best part? Their prices are more affordable than the big guys. So head to birdlandsports.com and grab your gear today. Show your support for the Birds with Birdland Sports.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles phenom Gunnar Henderson, breaking down how he was able to become the top prospect in baseball at such a young age and what could be next in his first full MLB season. Also inside, we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's college programs across the state, and Bo Smoka breaks down another year of wide receiver issues for the Ravens. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/pressboxonline, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. Again, tonight's the night, Guilford Hall Brewery for the title game. You're going to want to be there. San Diego State and UConn battle it out for the championship. Guilford Hall Brewery in Station North will have the game on its 22-foot screen with food and drink specials during the game, including all-you-can-drink beer for just $25. If you haven't been to Guilford Hall Brewery yet, this is a great chance to check it out tonight. See you at Guilford Hall for the college basketball title game. Looking forward to that. All right, now, a couple of things that I want to get into, and then Jeremy Conn's going to join us in a bit. Some huge news, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more during Fighting Words on Thursday this morning. It has been announced, and it was reported over the weekend, kind of became very clear that this was happening. The WWE and the UFC are merging together. And there's a lot of logic behind this. These two companies over the years have kind of winked at each other. The people that run these two companies are very similar. They are garbage humans that are egomaniacs and unrepentant and have done wretched, awful things and have faced no consequences for those things that they've done. So it makes all the sense in the world that they would be people that will want to partner up together. They are products that do have a fair amount of crossover between. One is supposed to be legitimate sports competition, although, they've shown over the years that they are not always sticklers for that. The other, obviously, is not a legitimate sports competition. And there's some danger in that, but this new company, this is a huge story in the world of business, that WWE and UFC will be merging together for a new company under the umbrella of Endeavor. In the world of sports, what the impact will be, I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel great.
No, it doesn't.
It feels like it's a way to continue to push UFC towards carnival barking, crossover, marketing, things along those lines, where they'll have wrestlers show up at these events, that maybe you let some WWE star that thinks they're a fighter. Once upon a time, they were willing to do this for CM Punk, and it's the most embarrassing thing in UFC history. I've said it a million times. It changed my interest in the UFC because it was the first time I said, there's nothing legitimate about this. This is not real. This is, what am I investing myself in? This is not a real competition. And I don't think that's good for the sports side of this, the competition.
Like mixed martial arts and combat.
Yes.
Yeah.
The business side of it makes all the sense in the world. Cross promotion, right? Like you at a UFC pay-per-view, they'll be promoting the next WWE event. At a WWE event, they'll be promoting the next UFC fight. It makes all the sense in the world from a business standpoint for those two companies to work together. Logic from a business standpoint. From a, if you're a WWE fan, I don't really know what it matters to you, right? Like, I don't know how much anything is going to change if you're a pro wrestling fan. But there is one entity in here that is supposed to be a legitimate sports entity, and having them walk the walk with scripted television, I think it invites for more people to be skeptical of what it is that they're seeing. We already question decisions that are made by the UFC about who's getting title shots, who's getting what fight, who's getting what spot on a card, because they're willing to be carnival barkers too, because they're willing to, play up social media, things along those lines. I think that this invites more questions about legitimacy of certain decisions. I don't think this suddenly means that the fights aren't legitimate.
Right, yeah.
I don't think it suddenly means that the fights are going to be scripted or something like that. I won't choose to believe that. But I will say that the decisions that UFC has already made over the years, it won't surprise me if there are fans or people that would otherwise be fans that would say to themselves, this feels fake.
WWE?
Yep,
Yeah.
this feels WWE to me. And now to be working hand in hand with them, I think it's only going to invite more of that moving forward. Do you care at all as a UFC fan?
I wasn't really sure kind of what to make of it. I was kind of just wanted to wait to see like what else was going to happen. I think on the surface, at least initially, I feel like it's not going to have a huge impact. I guess, like the promotion part of it.
Oh, I was completely expecting Dana White to show up at the end of WrestleMania last night. Like, I was totally prepared for them to go all in on that. Now, it would be smart for Dana White to avoid that, to say, I'm not going to be a part of that.
I've already been, like, over the kind of the last, I guess, few months, like, the UFC has just done so many kind of questionable things. Like in November, there was a rigged fight kind of. One of the coaches of the fighter, the odds like shifted like right before the fight started, and the guy got smoked in a minute. He was coaching the loser.
I don't know anything about this.
This was in November. Yeah, it was James Krause was the name of the coach.
Okay.
And so essentially he
maybe I remember
had, like,
that
a
story
Discord.
coming up.
He had, like, a Discord,
yeah.
and he told people like, my guy Derek Minner, he's got a hurt shoulder. He's gonna get knocked out in a minute, and he did.
Okay.
And so the odds
tanked. And,
and then obviously he lost. And then it kind of comes, and then coming on the heels of this is, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars, and it's gonna you would think, I guess, it's gonna help the UFC.
It's a $21.4 billion valued organization now with these two companies together.
And this is coming on the heels of them not re-signing Francis Ngannou. Like how do they continue to they're partnering now with the WWE and
because
this is
who Dana White is. Like this is who he is.
You don't have the greatest heavyweight in the world at the moment, and it's a very kind of questionable. I think I'm still gonna watch. For I guess at least the next couple months, because I do enjoy watching the fights and I enjoy mixed martial arts. But it's tough because when you're calling yourself the premier mixed martial arts organization of the world. A sport that is, kind of all about honor and you're trying to get a guy to yield to you to win and this is now you're partnering with the WWE.
I understand.
And you don't have the greatest fighter in the world.
I understand why you would be, sort of feeling hinky about it. Again, for the next, what is the next? I don't even know what the next fight is. What's the next fight?
Is Izzy.
Oh, that's the next fight. Okay. Is that this week?
Weekend. This
Wow.
weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a big one, obviously.
Yes.
I don't think this impacts anything about that fight. I don't believe that. But future decisions that are made as a company, where the line is drawn between legitimate competition as far as matchmaking is concerned versus or fight making versus hey, this would be better WWE style booking. Maybe if we make this fight, this guy is sort of like this WWE wrestler and this guy is sort of like this WWE wrestler, so we can do cross promotion between those two things. Like, you're the Roman Reigns and you're the Cody Rhodes of the UFC. I absolutely could see that type of stuff happening more and more frequently moving forward. And as a sports fan, as a fight fan, I don't care for it. I think that's bad. From a business standpoint, I get it. It makes all the sense in the world. I would think that the shareholders of both companies would say to themselves, yeah, this is probably a smart thing to do as far as business is concerned. But from a sports standpoint, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the UFC fighters that are the best on the microphone and get the most eyes on them, it's gonna work out well for them.
You would
weird
absolutely also
think
you would think that someone like Colby Covington would be in a position to say, hey, in between fights, I want to go over and do something over there.
He's a tough comparison too, though, because he is a really, really good fighter. Like, he is
I
one
get
of
it.
the top in the world.
I
think he's deserving of the next title shot for what it's worth. But it does make it interesting because if there is a guy that speaks just as well as Colby Covington, but maybe isn't very good, he lucked into a knockout or two, and then they're like, all right, well, let's give this guy a title shot because everybody in the world knows
it
him.
seemed like there's already been a fair amount of that over the years. But I would go back to, I absolutely could see the two companies trying to work together and WWE saying, hey, we need to sell a couple thousand more tickets. Why don't you let whoever it is, we can that John Jones Brock Lesnar mega fight that people talked about for a long time. Well, we can't do it in UFC any longer because Brock Lesnar will never go through he's never going to stop using steroids again in his life. That day will never come. So we can just do it over here instead.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Tyson Fury's gone over and done WWE stuff, and everybody knows it's a different thing. But the more you blur the lines, the more you're inviting people to be skeptical of what it is that UFC is.
Right.
And
maybe it will be only beneficial to the UFC fighters. It allows them to make more money. If John Jones
but it's not legitimate competition either, right? Like you're doing it with the same the idea of what Francis Ngannou is doing where he's going to go box is that I can't find legitimate competition. Maybe there's a comparison to be made to where Lamar Jackson is, where he's like, I can't find an offer somewhere else because you guys aren't allowing me to find an offer because of what you did to your cap that announced to everyone, don't bother to put an offer out there. We're just going to match it anyway. You're sacrificing your football team, and so every other team is looking there like, dude, we're not going to waste our time with you. The UFC has, I know that what's the other company that
like PFL or
no the one that runs in Showtime.
Bellator.
Bellator.
Yes.
I know Bellator is not nothing.
Yeah.
Showtime's a legitimate place to air fights, and there are name guys and gals that have fought in Bellator. I'm not trying to pretend like it doesn't exist, but for the most part, it has been monopolized by the UFC. So there's so little ability to try to measure what your actual value is because there's nowhere to go in order to do that. This doesn't provide that. It doesn't provide to Francis Ngannou, well, if you think I'm worth this, I'll go over and find out what Vince McMahon thinks I'm worth. It's the same company. You're negotiating against yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that won't work that way. So it doesn't provide that. Does it provide incentive? Does it provide a, hey, you know what? You want $2 million more? Go over and do this WWE thing. We'll give you $2 million more. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. And like, if they want to do that, that could be beneficial. It would be more beneficial for there to be an open market. It would be more beneficial for there to be legitimate competition and for Bellator to be, a standalone company that you always have to give each fighter exactly what they're worth. The problem is when you monopolize the market, you don't have to do that because there's nowhere for them to go, to the point where Francis Ngannou is going to go attempt to box and might be fine.
Yeah, might. I mean,
as a boxer,
really
might be okay, but clearly cannot be as valuable as a boxer as he is as a fighter because he doesn't do that. That's the way that it
did
goes.
start as a boxer, so who knows? I mean, who knows? He's an
he's
incredible
not,
athlete. But yeah.
I'm not doubting any of those things.
Yeah.
To think that
I
you
get
can
what
just
you're
so quickly go over and be a Francis Ngannou level boxer.
Yeah.
It's
when he's at the height of his MMA career, right?
Yes, that is a reach. I cannot join you there or believe that is possible. I simply do not. All right, Jeremy Conn's going to join us here in just a minute. It is a Monday edition of the program. In fact, let's squeeze in our third break before we talk to Jeremy. Today's show is brought to you by one of our newest partners. Really excited to have A.J. Michaels on board. Welcome. Love A.J. Michaels, obviously a company that so many of you know so well and have worked with over the years. Expert and award-winning A.J. Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. Boy, I had to flip on the AC in the car the other day. I mean, like, it was nice. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. Jeremy Conn checks in with us next. It's a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Baseball season is finally here, and what better way to celebrate than with some fresh gear from Birdland Sports. As a small business run by O's fans, Birdland Sports offers a great selection of unofficial merchandise, including unique designs like Birds Are Coming tees, player cartoon shirts, and championship prediction designs. And the best part, their prices are more affordable than the big guys. Get high-quality gear without breaking the bank. So whether you're heading to the ballpark or watching from home, show your love for the birds with Birdland Sports. Visit birdlandsports.com today to browse their collection and gear up for the season. Let's go O's!
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Another Orioles season is in the books, and the Bat-Around was there every step of the way as the Birds posted their first winning season in 6 years. And after promoting 2 #1 overall prospects in Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, Mike Elias has said it's liftoff from here. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and along with my co-host Zach Goodman, we'll be here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon all off season, discussing every signing, trade, and waiver claim as we navigate the cold winter months that lead to spring training. You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And if you miss a show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So tune into the Bat-Around with Paul Valley and Zach Goodman every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
PressBoxOnline.com/offers has all of the best offers, incentives for signing up for sports betting in the state of Maryland. Baseball season is here. It's the first time ever that you can bet from your phone in Maryland when it comes to baseball season. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers for the best sportsbook offers and incentives so you can start winning today. Get up to $1,000 in a deposit bonus match plus a $50 free bet with DraftKings. Just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers to claim your incentive. My Monday column is up at PressBoxOnline.com today, and it is about Angel Reese, and it's about why I'm trying not to fall in the trap of just talking about what happened at the end of the game yesterday and nothing else. I think there is plenty of room for reasonable people to have different opinions about, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark from the end of yesterday's game, as long as those opinions are reasonable. I think a lot of people are not using reason in their debate about it. But I think more than anything, it's irrelevant. We're wasting our time talking about something that doesn't matter, either because we don't know enough about women's basketball to talk about the game, talk about the players involved, or because we're particularly sensitive about the topic. We are, for some of us, admittedly, there are a lot of people that don't want to address their own racism as they discuss the topic. Whatever it is, whatever the reasoning is, all people want to talk about is what happened for a few minutes at the end of a few seconds at the end of a basketball game, instead of, a player had 34 double-doubles this season. One of the most historic seasons in the history of college basketball. A player that has risen up from growing up in the shadow of her mother. here in Baltimore, led St. Francis to 3 IAAM titles. Yes, it's a little bit bitter for some Maryland fans who can't help but wonder, like, could that have been us if Angel Reese had stuck around for one more season, which would have been really nice.
It would have.
That would have been so great if there could have just been one more season with Angel Reese at the University of Maryland. But that should be the conversation today. And it's just easy for us to fall into the trap of only discussing a couple seconds at the end of the basketball game that no matter what your opinion is, whether you think Angel Reese went too far, crossed the line, whatever, it's just not that big of a deal. Nobody got hurt. We're all going to survive. If a coach wants to say today, hey, I hope you don't act like that when you win a game, God bless. If that's what you want to do as a parent, is say to your kids, hey, I would prefer that you don't act that way, totally fine. But it is not worthy of all of the attention that it has gotten and how it's overshadowed what was an amazing tournament, what was an amazing season, what was an amazing performance from 6 games, 6 double-doubles in the NCAA tournament. Incredible. Remarkable. So my column is about that today at PressBoxOnline.com. If you want to go take a look at it, I'd appreciate it. It's Monday, and speaking of PressBoxOnline.com, this man posts his picks every day at PressBoxOnline.com. He is our friend Jeremy Conn from the Big Bad Morning Show, and he is back with us now here on GCR. Jeremy, what's going on, brother? How are you?
What's up, man? How's it going?
I'm all right. How was your weekend?
It was good. I think 4-1 in my top plays on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So overall, a nice weekend. It's always pleasant. And then one of my favorite plays in tonight's college basketball game of the year.
Ooh,
so looking forward to it.
Favorite plays of the year tonight. I try in my power. I try to avoid betting with you so I can't cool you off. So
sorry, I don't buy into that stuff. But if you do cool me off tonight, I would be quite angry. But it's okay.
All right.
It gives me someone to blame. But I love the under in tonight's game. I think everybody's misreading this game because of what we've seen from UConn. You've got 2 of the best defenses, 2 top 10 defenses in the country, depending on which metrics you're looking at.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I love this spot for the under because people get that sticker shock of, it was just 149 and now it's 130. It was 131 and I liked it. Now it's 132 and a half and I love it even more.
All right.
But I think this is one of those 60 to 50 type games in that range. So we'll see.
There's also, of course, the factor of these teams having played 2 days ago. All of these things sort of go into it. I actually like that call. I think I might join you there.
Yeah.
Look, I don't have a whole lot more to say about. I wish there were more storylines going into tonight's game. There really aren't that many for just a fan perspective. It's the national championship game. Someone's going to win a title. It'll be a first-time head coach winning a title. It was an insane tournament. I think it is a very unlikely scenario for San Diego State to beat UConn. I just think this is a UConn team that has kind of proven they were the team that ended up playing their best basketball exactly when they needed to play their best basketball, and they have been suffocating during this NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that gets left out of this, as I was pointing out to the guys, until the last couple shots that was hit on Saturday night. If it had held up, Connecticut would have beaten every single team they played by 15 points or more. It's a dominating performance that we've seen from them. And on top of it, I was calling them Alabama light, which I think is very fair to them. But when you look at them, one of the problems is that they can beat you in a slow-paced game, and they can beat you in an up-tempo game if it gets to that. So I just think that they're just very difficult to try to beat in a game like this.
That's where I am. I think they are that much better, and it's an incredible story, and that program continues to be. It's amazing how they've now transcended this over multiple coaches, right? It's amazing how post Jim Calhoun they were still able to win one with Kevin Ollie, and now for them to find another coach and to look like this could end up being a program that wins 4 more over the course of the next decade.
Yeah, well, as Rob pointed out, he brought it up on our show, which I never even thought about because it's. We always look at dynasties as teams that win consecutively and put this together or have this crazy run over a period of time of 5 years or something. But what UConn's done in the past, what would you say, 30 years? No other team has done that, including all these blue bloods. They've been to multiple championships, won multiple Big East, made runs to Final Fours. I would have no issue calling them, a dynasty, if you will, at the college basketball and how we look at college hoops in general.
How do you handle, Jeremy, trying not to get too worked up about it's the first, the 3 baseball games of a 162-game season, but yet, every single one of us was infuriated on Saturday when we watched that unfold. Like, how do you handle the level between this is the only game we have to watch right now, so I'm going to get worked up about everything I see, versus reminding yourself, hey, it's game 2, stop, settle down?
Yeah, and, it's such a tough thing, too, because, we're all fans, and I have to admit my fandom has changed with gambling, and I don't even the teams I root for or anything like that, but I get null after and just kind of numb, if you will, after a game, win or lose, when it happens. Now, when it's the playoffs, it's a little bit different, but it's so early in the season. I don't if you're the Phillies, how upset should you be over the fact that you got swept and now you're facing the Yankees in a series? There's a good chance you come home with a terrible record for your home opener, and the Orioles can feel that way too. They could have easily won all 3 of those games. They could have definitely won, at least 2 out of 3, especially with what happened with McKenna. But immediately, just being a guy that's played the sports and played sports and had that moment before where, you've done something that screwed up a game or you've been fortunate enough to not lose it, that's the worst feeling. So I just ultimately felt bad for McKenna when it happened where, Rob and the other guys were like, you felt bad for him. He's a professional athlete. I was like, yeah, because if you've ever been in that moment, how many times does he make that catch? I think Austin Hayes said 999 out of 1,000.
Sure.
And it just sucks. It's the final out of the game. If it happens in the 3rd inning, we're probably talking about it, but nowhere near as much as we are right now.
We're not. We're definitely. If Adam Duvall strikes out a batter later, we're never talking about it. It never comes up again. It's just a anomaly that he'll remember. Of course, he'll be frustrated about it, but none of the rest of us would care if there's a ground ball the next play and the game's over. Right? That's it.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough, and I don't know. I feel like there are people that are sort of rolling it over into they didn't think Ryan McKenna was worthy of being on the team to begin with, and they're rolling it over into other things and forgetting the dude did make a phenomenal catch in the exact same game on Saturday. There's a reason why they want him out there as a defensive player. It just so happens to be that one catch wasn't made.
Yeah, and it's these moments too, and obviously it feels like there was it's a movie that's been written or something. He drops the ball, he hits a home run, and but it ultimately, when you go back to those games, there's so many things you can look at in the game that cost them, but we focus on the last thing because it's what we remember. But getting thrown out, running on the bases, goofy plays that have happened in the field, maybe not being in the right position. How about day 1? We look at Ramon and how great he looked, and day 2, he strikes out 5 times in the leadoff position. So, there's a lot that we could look at from that standpoint of why they lost the game.
It's 3 games. There's a long season ahead. That's the way it goes. Jeremy Conn is with us here on GCR. Jeremy, I regret not doing this with you last week, and I had it on my list for you today. I didn't get the chance to talk to you about Bubba, and I never got to know Bubba. I was never anywhere where Bubba would call. I say I didn't get to know him. I do believe I met him once at a Bay Sox game, and it was made aware to me by Phil that that's Bubba, and I was like, oh wow, how about that? But can you tell me a little bit about Bubba? He was such a unique part of your guys' show.
Yeah, so Scott and I talked about it quite a bit. He actually called me, and we were discussing just the type of person that Bubba was, because make no mistake about it, and I love Bubba, but Bubba was a stage 5 clinger. He just wanted to be around. He wanted to be accepted. That's what he cared about. He didn't even care if he was the butt of the joke. He just wanted to be around you, which, I always like guys like that, because I end up being the butt of the joke. So anytime I can make somebody else into that, it's great. But just a loving guy. One of my favorite stories about him, he begged us to come in studio to hang out. And then Scott told him, if you bring in food for, our producer and some of the other people, it'd be fine. He goes, I'll bring him pizza. And Scott was like, that's great. So Bubba shows up, and while he's waiting for us to get to the station, he ate half the pizza. So he's that type of guy, man. And again, fun loving. And for people that didn't know him when he called into the show, he's a huge Washington Commanders fan. And he would always call in back then. He would ask if he could sing Hail to the Redskins. And just like Charlie Brown getting the football pulled away from him, as soon as he would start singing, Scott would hang up on him. And then Scott even developed this great pause where he would let Bubba think that we was hung up on him. He goes, did you guys hang up on me? And then Scott would go, no, we're here. Start singing. And he would go, hey, I'll click. And he'd just hang up on him. And it was just so great. And he went along with everything. The broken English from him calling in saying, yeah, I'm not pretty good at things, and the one time where he called in and he said, hey, can you do me a favor? And it's like the creepiest thing I think I've ever heard. But I love the guy, man. And the thing is, like, sometimes we get things twisted at times when guys want to be involved. And, like, he would send me messages through Facebook. But the sad part about all of this, and I'll wrap it up with this, is that, he was in the hospital for 3 months, and then he finally got out. And then, obviously, we hear the story that I didn't hear what was the actual cause, but he passed away in his sleep. But what a fun-loving guy that, again, just loved being a part of the show.
Man, I appreciate you taking a minute there to talk about it. And, like, it's funny because we've all dealt with the characters. You, of course, dealt with Rick a lot over the years.
Yeah.
And, like this is the genius of Howard Stern, right, is how he was able to take these unique personalities and make fun of them, but at the same time lift them up and give them a platform and let them be part of what it is that he did. And no one in this business has ever done it the way that Howard did it, obviously. He would cross the line from time to time and is a completely different person. But you never know exactly what the right line is between where am I making fun of somebody, where am I giving them that lift? And I thought you guys did that so well. It was one of the things that I appreciated so much about your show is that you found that line of, no, we don't need to tell this person to stop calling. We can figure out a way to make this work as part of what we do.
Yeah, and it's not. I'll attribute a lot of that to Scott, but it's also both our personalities. Where, we're the type of guys that want people to feel involved, and like everybody's opinion. I've always said, even a bad phone call can become a good one if you make it funny. I.e., almost every single thing that Dave and Salisbury's ever said on the radio. Like, and there's a give and take to it. And I've always been a guy like, make fun of me, let's have fun. Don't get upset when we're busting chops because it's all in jest. It's all part of the show. Because I tried to, and hopefully Bubba realized this, I tried to show him enough love when he wasn't with us on the air and the times that we would talk.
Right.
To let him know that, like, anything we did on the air, it's all for the radio.
Yep. It's playful. It's playful. Jeremy Conn is with us here on GCR. Safe home to Bubba. Jeremy, there was a story that got some, I don't know, it took some flight with Ravens fans over the weekend, and I don't know where it is with fair. We talked about it earlier in the show. Darius Slay comes out on his podcast and says, hey, I was this close to being a Raven. And I don't think the Ravens were able to offer him nearly as much as the Eagles ended up paying him. But they clearly weren't spending $1 million. They couldn't have thought they were getting him for $1 million either. And Ravens fans reacted to this story by saying, look at that. Once again, when it comes to a defensive player, somehow the Ravens have money to spend. But yet whenever it's a skill position offensive player, somehow there's no money to spend. And look, the Ravens need a second corner right now. Like, they don't Marlon Humphrey's there. Brandon Stevens would be their second corner at the moment, and I don't know how comfortable people would be. So I know that it makes all the sense in the world for them to have been talking to Darius Slay. But I also don't know that Ravens fans don't have a point about how strange it is that the Ravens constantly seem to have room for a Marcus Williams, have room for big-ticket items on one side of the ball in free agency, and so very rarely have ever seemed to have room to consider that or explore that at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and, look, maybe I'd have to go back and look at each and every instance. The one thing, we're sitting here talking about Darius Slay, but we've also heard they talked to Odell Beckham multiple times and DeAndre Hopkins about the possibility of a trade. So they've looked into that stuff. And everything that's going on right now is
It's
because
very
of the
unique.
Lamar contract.
Yeah, everything this year is unique. And I talked about this with Jacoby Myers at the Ed Block event this weekend. Like, why, if you're a wide receiver, would you be coming to Baltimore if you don't know who your quarterback is going to be?
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, Calais Campbell, where people are like, oh, he'll just hold. He'll wait until the Ravens figure it out, and then he'll come back here, and then he just goes off and signs with Atlanta. But again, like, he didn't know what the quarterback situation was going to be here. He didn't know if he was going to get offered the same thing. And what happens if he waits around and he's the one left, kind of holding the short end of the stick and doesn't have a chance to sign with a team that he wanted to go to. So I do think there's a lot of things that factor into it. One of the things I will say, though, about, all this stuff with with the Ravens and Lamar. And look, it does appear that they put more money in the defense, and I think that would probably show up. But also now you look at it like you have to look at what was available in the market. Were you going to go, some of those years where they go out and they spend on defensive players, were you really going to go make a move for the likes of Kenny Galladay and pay him $80 million? I mean, they were in on it. We heard they were talking about it. So, look, I think some of the stuff is fair. I don't know that this one is, because to me this is more about Lamar's contract not being done. Because I think if that was done, Darius Slay's probably here as your second corner, and you've probably made a move for a better wide receiver than Nelson Aguilar. But this is where you're at right now, and I've said this time and time again. When it comes to the Lamar contract, there's only two things that are going to be hurt by this. Lamar, in the end, if he has to sign with a team he doesn't want to be with because nobody else is going to sign him. And then lastly, the Ravens, because, again, free agency is going to be dried up for the most part, and you're going to be getting the dented cans.
All these things are true. I'm in a strange place, though, where, like, this goes into – I referenced this earlier. There are people that want to point out that, like, hey, the way it turns out the way the Ravens have handled this with Lamar, it looks brilliant, right? Like, the offers aren't coming in. They've handled this exactly the way they should have been handling it. He's got to come back to them. And my response is, look at their football team. Like, look, they're worse than they were at the end of last season, even if they get Lamar back out of all of this. I'm not saying it's their fault, right? Like, they're in a very unique situation, but I don't know that brilliant equates when you've not been able to upgrade your football team in any way this offseason.
Yeah. And that's my point with it, too, because, like, I feel like the offers that the Ravens have given are fair. I don't know what the disconnect is with Lamar and here, if it had something to do with offensive coordinator, something behind the scenes. But, again, we go back to this whole thing where people are like, stop talking about him having an agent. I'm just wondering if the negotiation, if those, politics that go on during it, because, again, I'll say it as many times as people listen to it. It feels like Lamar drew a line in the sand. That's what I want. Ravens made an offer, came up from that offer, and he hadn't budged. And with the latest of him saying, I never said I wanted a fully guaranteed deal. I just want more guaranteed money than Deshaun Watson, which is a lot of freaking money that no other team outside of the Browns have done that. So, I mean, I think the Ravens offered him an unbelievably fair deal, and now both sides are going to deal with the after effects, and it just hurts both of them in the long run.
No doubt. No, does not come out well for anybody. Did you watch any of WrestleMania?
Negative, Ghost Rider. I've grown out of it. And again, if I'm at a party, I did get invited to a party to go watch it, but instead I said, look, I'd rather watch baseball and even the women's basketball game. I just don't care about wrestling the way I used to.
I understand that.
I did like Vince McMahon's mustache.
No, that's creepy. That's creepy as F. There is nothing to like about that whatsoever.
Do you think he overheard like Matt Dillon and something about Mary? Like he was like eavesdropping in on the phone calls and they were talking about guys with really thin mustaches.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give this to you to wrap up with. I want to know how you react. When I saw somebody tweet this, I assumed it had to be you, but it actually wasn't. I'm sure that it's either crossed your path, and maybe I just missed you retweet it. Did you see the story about the woman who has a very unique set of circumstances downstairs?
Yeah, she's from Australia. She has 2 vaginas.
Yes.
And one is for porn and one is for her husband. She was actually on the Howard Stern show.
Okay.
That's where and she's not the only woman with this, do you call it an affliction?
Right.
I don't know what you,
right.
But there are quite a few women that have this, but it is very interesting though. And she says, one is for her husband, the other one's for work. I don't know that I'm buying that.
So yeah, I don't know how I feel about that either, but if you met someone, like, go out on you're a single man, you go out on a date, you get this piece of information, are you excited or are you, I don't know, turned off by it?
I'm not turned off by it, but I kind of feel like if I showed up on a date and I had 2 wieners, somebody'd be turned off.
Right, that would be weird. That would be weird. That was weird for me the first time you and I went out. Yes.
Because is it because I have 2 or because both of them are small?
So small? Yes, exactly.
That's probably what it was. That's probably why they were.
That is the bigger problem.
But no, I mean, I wouldn't like if I met the chick from Total Recall. I think I'd be in heaven. It wouldn't bother me. She'd have a hard time finding bras, but as there were 3 of them. Yeah, I mean, it is a really weird story. I think the first time it's thrown at you, you'd probably be like, really?
Right.
And maybe you don't. Maybe I don't know. I've never seen it, so I don't know if you notice it or it's. I'd have to do some more research if she's willing.
Okay. All
no,
right. Yeah.
No, my wife's not willing.
No, right.
But no, I mean, I just don't know. I don't know how different it would be.
I don't know either. I'm not unintrigued. I probably will spend a little. I think for the purposes of show research, I'll spend some time maybe perusing more about the subject a little bit later today. I think that's an important thing that I should do for the purposes of the show. What's coming up this week on the Big Bad Morning Show?
So we're all in. We're at Pickles on Thursday. So we'll be doing the show live from there. And this will be, I think Ed's on vacation next week. So we finally get a week where we're all together. Obviously talking about all the same things you're talking about, the Angel Reese stuff with Caitlin Clark and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, and of course the Orioles, and can we get over this hump as they have a pretty big series against the Rangers, who looked very good in their opening series.
Sure did. It looks like the money they spent, money well spent so far. At Jeremy Conn 1057 on Twitter is how you follow him. PressBoxOnline.com every day for his picks. Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you next Monday.
Thanks, man. I'll see you.
It's Jeremy Conn with us from the Big Bad Morning Show on 1057 The Fan. Hey, speaking of Jeremy, I had a really special moment. It was an honor for me to be MC along with Wally Williams for the annual Ed Block Courage Awards this year, and they've kind of changed the way they did things a little bit, and they do a cocktail reception with a program built around that now, and at a really emotional moment as the Ed Block Courage Awards announced on Saturday night that moving forward every year they're going to recognize kids who are in Courage Houses as the Mo Gabba Spirit Award winner moving forward. And we had a moment Wally and I did with Sanzi and with one of the initial winners of the Mo Gabba Spirit Award that is going to receive their own Ed Block Courage Award, and that was a really powerful moment for me to be like I appreciated them asking me. I didn't realize when they asked me that in part they were asking me because they were doing this and my relationship with Sanzi, and you know, that made it all the more, like, when I realized that was what was going on, I was like, oh, God. So that was a really emotional moment for me on Saturday night. But I had a great time. Got a chance to spend a little bit more time with Griffin was there on Saturday night. Griffin made an appearance.
Yes, yeah.
Got a chance to
That's what everybody was talking about, I think.
Yes, that's what everybody was, all around the room. They were like, did you guys know that Griffin Bass was here? Like, this is unbelievable. How did he manage to fit it into his crazy schedule? It was nuts.
I know. I pulled a lot of strings.
Yeah, I was saying, bring Stan back up if you don't mind.
I'm sorry.
You're
I've been friends with his father, Marty Bass, for
years,
You
correct.
know,
So you knew this moment was coming. Yeah,
I could smell.
There was a star
coming.
turn at some point that was inevitable.
There's this guy Jake Bass.
Jake,
who
right?
Tries
Yeah.
to pretend.
Yeah, he's all right.
You know, he
he's
tries
all
to
right.
pretend that
Yes,
Marty,
he's faking it the entire time.
Yeah.
Did Jake get married recently? Did I see that? Or maybe engaged?
Got engaged.
Got engaged. That's what I saw.
Jake, of course, is actually Marty's son.
Yes.
Engaged and works for Barstool Sports.
Does he still work with Barstool?
Yeah,
I know he was there for a long
moved
time.
up quite a bit in New York.
I know he was working with Pat McAfee for a little bit too when he was there, which was really cool. I actually believe I think you're wrong, Stan. Griffin is actually Kevin Bass's son, which, like, you got to you do the math. You're like, that doesn't make it? It works out. Trust me. It's
He's not
Griffin's the son of Kevin.
What's the
Bass.
mayor of Los Angeles
now?
Yeah. She's a black
Oh, God, that's
she's
right.
Bass. She's
Is
a
it Bass? Okay.
She's a Bass.
I know.
I can't remember her first name.
I was thinking of Garcetti, who was the
Karen
last one. Yes, Karen Bass.
Yes.
Karen Bass.
I didn't realize there were so many Basses out there.
Yeah, right.
That's his mother.
Yeah. Griffin made an appearance. It was cool to see. Spent some more time with Jameis Winston, who was really great, man. Like, as much fun as he was on the show, he was the most popular guy in the room.
Oh, yeah.
He's just such a pop culture figure beyond football. It's wild because, like, he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL any longer, and yet by far the most popular guy in the room on Saturday night. Everybody was trying to play cornhole with him. Everybody was trying to get over to chat with him, and he was making time for everybody, and had nothing but really wonderful things to say about his time there, and even was, like, very appreciative of us having him on the show.
Yeah, it was.
I'm like, bro, you're Jameis Winston.
Good to see your faces.
Yeah, right.
Is it?
Yeah, it was wild, man. It was a really good dude.
But, yeah, he was.
Everybody put up with my. I did a little monologue to open up the show on Saturday night. Unfortunately, the room wasn't really settled.
Right.
So
yeah,
that was a disappointing part for me. Is I don't know if any of them. The Brandon Graham one seemed to stick a little bit. So
It did.
the way that
I think
we
it was good that you announced the Lamar Jackson extension in the middle of it to kind of
was
reel
bad.
everybody in.
that was Wally's idea.
Oh,
I
was
had
it?
a different
I liked
plan.
it.
I had a different plan for what I wanted to do. That was Wally's idea, and nobody bought it. Like nobody.
I was there with my sister, and as soon as you said it, I was like, "That's not true." There's no
Yeah,
message. I was
yeah.
Like, what? I was like, "What? What?"
And Wally was so convinced that like we get a huge response to it, and then I was like, "All right, Wally, we'll give it a shot."
I mean, it was worth it.
I rewrote the script for Saturday night, like literally up until Saturday night. I was reworking on the script. Believe it or not, we didn't have a team of writers to work with, so all the material, like the actual material, was my own, which is not ideal. Like I'd rather have a group of writers that could help me with that, but that's not what I had. And then I was away last week, so I didn't have all the time to spend on it.
Yeah.
And then I had a game to do. I had a Loyola game on Saturday afternoon, so I'm literally rewriting the script.
As you're calling this game.
Right, I'm sitting in the booth at Loyola getting ready for the game and still rewriting the script for Saturday night because I wanted there to be also there was a player that we thought was going to be there that ended up not being there on Saturday night, so I had to take out the material that I had for that player and then put in a different player instead. I was proud of the Brandon Graham one. I thought that one was good. It was so the way we structured it, we did program and then we did cocktail reception and then we did more program afterwards. So we had two different halves of our program. And so I said, Brandon Graham is here tonight. Brandon, I don't know if you heard, but we're doing things a little bit differently this year. We're going to have one half of the program now and one half of the program later. But don't worry, I was given word that unlike the last time out, your teammates are going to show back up for the second half this time.
That was good.
And it did. That was the one that got the most reaction. I got a lot of boo because apparently there were a ton of Eagles fans.
There were. I know they were.
They were
chanting
so
as it
excited
came out.
about Brandon Graham being there. So I got a lot of. So I was proud of that one because it got the most reaction of all of the. I don't care if it's boos. Who cares? That's what you're going for. That was the point of the joke. So I was proud of that one. That got a good reaction. I think that forced the Travis Etienne thing because I had to replace the player.
The other.
So that was a late rewrite to do something with Travis. So the bit that I did with Travis Etienne was the pronunciation was. So I didn't say his name. I just said the Jaguars winner is here. What a star he's turned out to be, over 1,000 yards after he missed his first season. And his name is spelled Etienne, but I've heard it pronounced a ton of different ways. I've been practicing it all week. I think I've got it figured out. If you're all willing to bear with me, I think I can do this. Travis.
Boom. Big pop out of me. I enjoyed it.
All right.
I
if
did.
that's what I got.
That was like in the car home. I said to my sister, I was like, I like the Travis Etienne one.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
And she was like, the Travis?
Yeah.
She
yeah.
was,
well,
she
no,
actually,
it's very it's a very specific style of comedy that you have to be into. It's just misdirection. That's the only play on that is the misdirection of it.
I was like,
it got my friend Brandon Williams, a Poe, of course, who we also honored on Saturday night. And he's so good at what he does.
You did dox the Oriole bird too.
Well, that wasn't me. That was blame Brett Dickinson for that one. That had nothing to do with me. But our friend Brandon Williams, who we recognize, he suffered an injury last year, and it was a fun story. He gave me a bunch of crap for the ATM one. He was like, "Oh, that one was weak." What was the other one I went? Oh, I did the cheap one with Jameis Winston. Obviously,
yes.
I did the. He was thinking he wasn't going to be here. His schedule was crazy. You know why it is that he ended up showing up, Wally? I don't know. Why's that? The free crabs. How'd you not see that coming?
Right.
That was the cheap. It was the easy one.
You had to do it.
That was the one you had to do. And then what was the Jacoby Myers? Oh, I did the Vegas one with Jacoby Myers. Right. I did the $33 million in Vegas, which I think gets you one pool party and 6 chicken tenders.
Which might be all he needs.
That might be all he needed, 100%. But we had a lot of fun. It was great to be a part of it. I really enjoyed being there. Look forward to being a part of it moving forward and continue to be appreciative of all these players who don't have to do this. And I keep saying that. They don't have to do this. It's a busy off season. Like, this is not flying somebody into St. Croix. You know what I mean? Like, this is, hey, would you take a weekend to come to Baltimore for guys that are millionaires? And you got to spend the weekend, signing autographs, taking pictures, and we expect you to go spend time with kids. And every single player that comes in and spends the day, because yesterday they were at St. Vincent Villa, the Ravens' Courage House, says that's the most meaningful thing. and they go back and they tell next year's winner, go do it, because that day will impact you. That day is worth it. Like, go do it for that. So these players don't have to come into town, but they do every year, and we had a great group of guys that was out this year. I mean, Travis Etienne's a star. Brandon Graham has obviously been
Brian
a star.
Robinson was there as well.
Brian, which is a great star. I kept thinking of ways to make a Brian Robinson joke. I was flirting with like a 50 Cent joke. Like, Brian Robinson's well on his way. Just 8 more and he'll become a platinum rapper or something like that. But I was like, is that really something that I want to make a joke about? Like, do I really want to do that?
Unless there's something with, like, the hat or...
Yeah, I mean, like, I thought, like, if we could have gotten a giant hat, that would have been fun. I just couldn't figure out exactly, and so I just left it out entirely of a little monologue that we did. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed being a part of it and look forward to doing it again. And thanks to, guys like Max Williams and Jameis Winston, who came on the show, and then Jacoby Myers called into the radio show yesterday. He wanted to come on with us last week. The scheduling just didn't work out, but appreciate all those guys that came into town and took the time to be a part of the Ed Block Courage Awards this weekend. It was a really, really neat thing for me to be a part of. All right, so what are we doing here?
I think we'll do a tidbit, I guess, unless there was something else you wanted to get
the
to.
thing that you asked me, is that
did.
Tomorrow?
I think we're going to work on that for tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't sound confident about that.
Yeah, that's.
Are you sure we shouldn't just do it now, or?
Well, the thing is, he has the information, so.
Okay. If he just calls, then okay. Awkward. Quickly, some things that you guys have gotten in about from Ryan. Ryan says, Glenn, are you not going to address the John Angelos thing just because Stan's here today? No, not at all. I don't know if I heard it. John Angelos. I actually heard him because I was traveling on Thursday. I heard him join the broadcast, the radio broadcast. I was not watching because I was driving at the time. I heard him join the radio broadcast, and then I was made aware that he had called into 105.7 afterwards and talked to Tim and Jason. And I'm in a weird part where, like, I'll give you 2 things. One, I think it was silly. I think it was I don't know what he thought the win was for attacking the Baltimore Sun. I have no idea what John thought he was getting out of that. And inevitably, the Baltimore Sun never did invite people to come open. Like, never said, we'll open our books. John said that. And it would be way easier for John to just say, look, I know what I said. That's not proper business procedure. We're not actually going to do that. But to act like, to try to spin it around on someone else, when this started with you were the one that said that. There's I can't give a pass to that. Like, do I think it matters? Not really. Not at all. I don't think it matters. I don't. And I know if you are inclined to not like the Angelos family, then any fodder, I understand. Will bring back up the feelings that you have. I get it. I do. I understand that. Does it actually matter that John Angelos isn't going to open the Orioles books? He never was. That was never going to happen. So I can't actually be mad about it. Would it be cool if he did? Oh, my God, it would be awesome if he did that. But it was never going to occur. So for me to be mad about it, I can't do that. For me to care all that much about him fighting with the Baltimore Sun, maybe it's because I'm watching Succession right now. I know how rich people work. Like, I don't actually, but I feel like I do because I've been watching Succession. Like, everything is kind of a urinating contest sometimes. Like, yeah, you think that, you're so great. I think it was unnecessary. I think it was quite silly. I think he could have accomplished way more by just saying, guys, I know I said what I said back in January. I was kind of caught off guard. That's not really how businesses operate. You know that. You know that the Baltimore Sun doesn't open their books. The Ravens don't open their books. The Capitals, the Wizards, they don't open their books. The Commanders. That's just not the way that business operates. So I'm not going to do that. Let me go ahead and put that to bed right now. We hope that you guys will believe that, profits that we're making are being invested back in the baseball team. Continue to talk about the academies that you're opening and the international spending, and say when the time is appropriate, we're going to spend more money on baseball players at the major league level as well. Say those things, and it's a non-story. Because he brought it up to begin with, he suggested that he was going to open the Orioles books to then be angry that people are asking about it. It doesn't work. Like, you created that. You were the one that put that out in the ether. I'm not affected by it because I never thought it was going to happen. No one does that. No one operates that way until, like a lawsuit forces them to or something like that. So, I don't know. Was it a bad look? Yeah, I mean, sure, it was a bad look. Do I think it matters at all moving forward?
Because it's not like his worst look, I guess. Or
I don't even know. What does it have to do with whether the Orioles are going to be competitive? What does John Angelos fighting with the Baltimore Sun have to do with whether or not the Orioles are going to be able to compete in the next 3 years? Nothing. Zero. Nada. So I just can't get that worked up about it. Again, if you think it's an example of who he is and why you don't trust him, whatever you feel, I can't tell you not to feel. I care about one thing. Does the baseball team win? Do they continue to make strides, to be competitive, and move forward? That's what I care about. I care way more about, you want something I'm going to hold to John Angelos? Are you attempting to sign Adley Rutschman? I care deeply about that. Deeply about that. And if you're not, if your plan is to Manny Machado this thing and to ride it out for as long as you can, take your best chance, and then sell for pennies on the dollar at the last moment, then I'm going to have problems. Because it was problematic the last time. That's what I concern myself with. I'm past it. I'm just, I don't know, man. Like, I know these things used to get me worked up in a different way. Maybe it's like Jeremy was saying about his fandom. I am far more capable of saying, does this thing actually matter or not? It doesn't. It doesn't matter. I mean, it might matter to the people at the Baltimore Sun. I don't know. I mean, maybe I should have asked Nathan Ruiz that. I apologize. It wasn't the first. Again, I'm more concerned about baseball. Maybe they say this isn't okay. You're attacking. But I don't think it was an attack. I think it was trying to turn the tables. If John Angelos said the Baltimore Sun is trash, no one should ever read it, I'd have a real problem with that. That's not okay. I didn't feel like this was that. I felt like it was just an attempt to deflect, a misguided attempt, but an attempt to deflect. That's the way it felt to me. But I get it. I would much rather that the story had been John Angelos goes on. I do think later on in the interview, like after he sort of sidestepped a question about giving out extensions, like deflected, wagged the dog a little bit. Hey, we see what these other teams are doing. Are you going to start, going that route? And he said something like, well, we're going to look at every avenue and we're never going to be the Yankee. Like, he didn't really ask the question. And then I might have been Jason, to his credit, followed up by saying, right, but specifically, could there be a time where you start working on extending your own players right now? And if I remember correctly, John Angelos followed that up by saying yes. And that, to me, is far more significant than any of this. Like, that's my thing. That's the thing. Make a statement. Prove who you are by doing that. That specifically changes everything. I don't know if there's somebody who transcribed the interview that you can pull up. But the first question that was asked, he completely sidestepped it and didn't answer it and dodged it. And then there was a follow-up that was immediately asked, and he suggested that, yes, they could start doing that. Now, again, that's only as good as the actions that follow it. Just saying, hey, that's something we could do only matters if you actually turn around and do it. And somebody might say, well, he said he was going to open the books too.
It was still kind of relatively non-committal. It was Nathan Ruiz actually tweeted out that on the fan, John Angelos, when asked about potential extensions, he said the front office will do what they can within the system that they're in.
I think that was part of the first answer.
That was part of the first
I think there was a second answer that was given that was more. All right, I'll try to check. I'll try to track it. I feel bad. I apologize. I apologize for not having that. It's just coming back to mind. But I do think it mattered. I do think it was relevant at that point. But anyway, I feel like that was it. I feel like that was the last thing I wanted to get to today. Oh, John from Little Rock asked that we keep the people in Little. Glenn, just wanted to see if you and everyone up there can keep Little Rock in Arkansas and your thoughts. The tornado that happened on Friday destroyed a tremendous amount physically and mentally to thousands here. We were fortunate, I believe he meant to say, not to be directly in the path. Thank you. Absolutely, John. I apologize. Again, because I was away, I didn't even know. So, absolutely, 100% our thoughts with everybody in Arkansas. John, if there's something we can do, maybe adopt a family or something like that, tell us, and we'll try to put something together, all right? We'll work on something. Maybe we can do a charity something pool. I don't know what that would be. A charity, who's going to be the Orioles' best hitter this season, something like that. We could try to put something like that together. Yeah, something. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We could do like a draft because we do that every year on the show. We could do a draft where you get like certain names, and if your guy ends up being the Ravens' first pick in the draft, then you're the winner, and you get half the pot, and the other half goes to the folks in Arkansas. John, let us know. Let us know if there's something we can do to help out. We would be happy to do that. All right, let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by the print issue of PressBox, which is only available for like another 2 weeks. Get it for free right now at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. Read it all, PressBoxOnline.com. There's Gunnar Henderson on the cover. Great story from Luke Jackson. Go get it right now, again, for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms.
All right, I actually mentioned this one on Friday, but I want to make sure I shared it with you too. So Shohei Ohtani had the 26th instance of an opening day start where he went 6 innings, had 10 strikeouts, and did not allow a run. He's 26th player to do that. The previous 25 and 0. Those teams have never lost when their pitcher went 6 innings without allowing a run and had 10 strikeouts on opening day. Shohei Ohtani and the Angels, of course, lost 2-1 to the A's.
Tungsten arm O'Doyle, baby.
O'Doyle, right there. So that was pretty ridiculous. Stolen bases are way up at the moment. I guess it should continue to be that way. On opening day last year, there were 5 stolen bases. Teams were 5 for 9 on the base paths. And then on opening day this year, 21 for 23, 91% success rate on the base paths. As there were 4 times the amount of stolen bases. Across the whole weekend, so the first 4 days of the season last year compared to the first 4 days of this season, there have been 70 stolen bases, which is the most through the first 4 days since 1998. Last year.
So, by the way, here was the quote. They're going to do what they can within the system that they're in. Does that mean extensions? Absolutely, I would hope so. Okay. That part of it alone, more commitment than we've ever seen before. Now, again, everybody's picking up the non-committal part of it, and sorry, I just found it. That was the quote that I was looking for. But absolutely, I would hope so. Is as much of it might happen as we've ever gotten. So.
Yeah. So, the right direction.
I hope.
Yeah.
I get why people might not be as, confident about it. I certainly understand that. I'm sorry. Continue to go.
No, you're good. 70 stolen bases. Teams are 70 for 84 with an 83% success rate on the base paths as opposed to 29 of 43, so 67% success rate. 70 to 29 is the stolen base differential to the first 4 days of the season. Of those 70 stolen bases, the Orioles have 10 of them through the first weekend. So looks like we can continue to see that. That's exciting. I mean, the offense looks
the offense certainly looked great. Certainly looked great.
Yeah. The weighted runs created, so WRC plus. The Orioles have the second highest in the league through the first weekend.
Championship.
180. The St. Louis Cardinals 202 is number 1. And then, of course, the Rangers are third, 160, so I guess we can continue.
Could be another week of 8, 9, 10-run games.
Yeah, the Red Sox are at 154. But, yeah, so the Orioles are second, though, with the most weighted runs created plus through the first weekend.
I believe that's actually how they determine champions now, too. I think if I saw that going into the year.
So whoever the Cardinals and the Orioles
Yep,
straight to the
there you go, World Series. Let's go.
The average time of the game is down half an hour through the first weekend. 3:09 was the average time last opening.
I did make a joke on Thursday about how baseball said we're going to shorten these games, and the Orioles and Red Sox were like, yeah, not so fast, my friend.
Well, that was I didn't pull this stat.
Even given the amount of runs scored, yes, even for a game with 19 runs scored,
it was still 3:05 or something.
Well, it was like 3:12 or something like that. It wasn't quick, But it was like in the
It was
past
action,
a game like that you would assume would be like a 4-hour game. Yes, it was shorter than a typical 19-run game would be.
It was like the opening day stat was like the first. There were 3 games that went over 3 hours, and all 3 of them were like 10-9, 11-7, and then like another 10-8 or something like that. So they were all like entertaining games if they were going over 3 hours, which I guess is the goal of everything. So 2 hours 38 minutes is the average time of game. 3 hours 6 minutes was the average time of game. Actually, 3 hours 9 minutes. Sorry, was the average time of game in 2022. There have been 40 pitch clock violations, 0.8 a game, so just under 1 violation a game, which I think is, I guess, good. I guess maybe
it led to a strikeout, of course, on game Thursday on opening day.
Devers. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so that was big.
And what turned out to be a 1-run game.
Yes.
Caitlin
Clark, of course, still set. Incredible record. She
sure did. The most points ever in a tournament.
Leading up to the national championship, she had 161 points and 52 assists. And that was one of 6 instances ever where a player had 150 points and 50 assists in any 5-game span ever. And the 5 previous players to do that, name started with Caitlin, ended with Clark. She's the only player to ever do this.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That is pretty amazing.
It's the 6th time she's done that. Yeah. And it's the only time it's ever happened. She also scored more points in postseason play, so the Big Ten tournament and the tournament than the Iowa football team did all season.
I mean, hang on a second though. I don't know if that's the bar you're looking for. Might be able to put 5 Iowa football seasons together and not match that number.
Dama Sanogo became the 4th player ever to average 20 points and shoot 65% or better in the tournament while as entering the title game.
Once upon a time, there was a thought that he might end up at Maryland, by the way.
Sanogo?
Once upon a time, he was very much in the crosshairs of Maryland.
Hey, that'd been nice.
I saw, by the way, that Ace Baldwin jumped in the transfer portal. I think everybody believes that's just for him to go reunite with Mike Rhodes at Penn State. But could you imagine if Ryan Odom could convince him to stick around?
That'd be nice for VCU. Trying to figure because I got several from busy weekend.
We never really talked about Hunter Dickinson on the air. I think I told you and Drew off the air that was percolating last week, and then it became official that he was in the transfer portal. I do not know. I know Jeff Ehrman's done some reporting about it. I do not know anything personally about it. I had heard that there was something coming with Hunter Dickinson, but
keep talking about it, put the pressure on.
I don't know. I mean, I say I don't know. I know that he's, for his subscribers, shared some information, but I've said before I'll never share anything that Jeff Ehrman is trying to get people to pay for. If somebody else shares it for free, I'm willing to do that, but I just don't give away other people's work. It's just something that I'm not going to do. It'd be interesting.
It would.
That's all I can say.
It
would be very, very interesting. Obviously, the tie there being Jameer Young. I don't know. I don't know if I see it. I still think that ultimately Miami's going to come in and say, okay, yeah, you can go play with your own or teammate, or we'll get you $6 million to come down here. And he's going to be like, okay, yeah, I'll go do that instead.
So,
yep, interesting. Sorry.
We'll
Sorry.
see.
Go ahead.
You're good. That was because that's
Sanogo.
Very newsworthy. Yes, Sanogo joins Corliss Williamson of Arkansas in 1994, Akeem Olajuwon from Houston in 1984, and then in 1991, Christian Laettner from Duke.
You got a thing with trying to bring up Christian Laettner.
He's done pretty great tournament stuff, unfortunately.
Go ahead.
And then UConn has outscored its opponents by 103 points in the tournaments. They are the 7th team all time with a point differential of at least 100 entering the title game, and they are the 6th ever team to enter the title game after winning each tournament game by double digits. So I wanted to go ahead and see.
No chance.
Oh, no chance.
I mean, I'm just gonna say names of schools. I wouldn't know what year. I mean, it's just a specific thing.
I guess you're
right. Maryland didn't, because I don't think the UConn game was double digits. I think all the other games were.
No, yeah, not Maryland. Maryland not on the list.
Duke at some point.
Yeah, Duke in 2001.
2001.
2001, they won every single game, and then in 1999,
well, yeah, but they shouldn't have won in the Final Four by double digits because the refs screwed Maryland obviously in the Final Four. It was one of the worst. You think yesterday's game was poorly officiated? Go back and rewatch that Final Four game.
The 1999 Duke team has the highest point differential ever entering a title game, plus 126. They're the only team to have a triple-digit point differential and not win the title.
How about that?
Yeah.
They lost to UConn, of course.
Yes, they did.
Let's say UConn.
UConn.
Any UConn team do this?
Not before this one.
Okay.
Not before this one.
How about Kansas? Did any of their teams?
Not Kansas.
How about a Kentucky in there?
Not Kentucky.
How about a Carolina in there?
There you go. Carolina on there twice, 2009 and 2016. Entered with a triple-digit point differential and winning every game by double digits.
How about is there a point at which this starts? Like, is there a cutoff for like?
They're actually all 2000 or later.
They're all 2000 or later.
So you have Carolina twice in the Duke team.
All right.
There's 2 more.
There's 2 more, you say?
That have
Like
since
hell,
2000.
you say? So Florida.
Not Florida.
So Baylor.
Not Baylor.
So they didn't have to win the title.
Yeah, these teams did not have to win the title. Let's see, one of them did. The other did not.
Syracuse.
Not Syracuse, no.
Louisville.
Not Louisville. Actually, no, this team, I think they did both win the title.
They both won the title.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be Virginia. That wouldn't make sense, but I'll say Virginia anyway because there's only so many teams that won national titles. Virginia.
Not Virginia.
Michigan State.
Yes, Michigan State in 2000. Michigan State in 2000 won every game by double digits, leading up to the
things
final.
Kind of broke for Michigan State that year. That was a weak Final Four outside of them. It was like they were the 2 8 seeds made the Final Four that year. They played the Mike Miller Florida team in the title game.
This one was relatively recent. Pretty recent. Not relatively. It was the last 5 tournaments.
Relatively recent. I guess Kansas, I guess Baylor, I guess Virginia.
So before that?
Who am I blanking on? Who am I?
It was the year.
Who am I?
It was the year UMBC beat Virginia.
Who the hell won that tournament? Why am I blanking
That was,
on this? Hey, shut up, you.
Okay. Sorry.
Shut up. Oh, Villanova. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
What the hell am I doing?
2018 Villanova. So you have the 2018 Villanova team, 2016 and 2009 Carolina team, 2001 Duke team, 2000 Michigan State, and 2023 UConn teams to enter the tournaments, enter the title with all double-digit wins. And then finally,
Jesus, still more?
I know. I'm sorry. It was a busy weekend. The distance between UConn and San Diego State's furthest distance between championship teams in the last 80 years, 2,904 miles between campuses.
How about that?
Last 80 years. 1942 was the only one further.
I have no idea. Who was it?
Stanford and Dartmouth.
Okay, very good.
Stanford and Dartmouth in 1942.
Very good. All right. Tubular is brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Yes, tonight on CBS, title game 9:20. San Diego State and UConn. Orioles Rangers 8 o'clock on Masson 2. Kyle Bradish and John Gray. Masson for Rays Nationals at 7. MLB Network has Mets Brewers at 2. Phillies Yankees at 7. NHL Network Golden Knights Wild at 8 o'clock. USA's got Everton and Tottenham Hotspur at 3. Then Raw tonight at 8. I know you got a lot of thoughts about WWE not pulling the trigger with Cody Rhodes, keeping the belt on
crazy.
Roman Reigns, right?
I know.
Like
So he's going to come back and take it, I guess.
Cody Rhodes, that's what everybody thinks, is that they're just trying to drag it out a little bit longer, maybe have him do it at SummerSlam. Who would you have be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns?
Cody Rhodes has just an incredible jawline.
Ah, okay.
Which
and that
is
that's something that matters to you?
I guess so. Because
in
when
a
I
champion,
first saw him,
you want to
it
see
almost looked like he had a mask on.
Okay, so you're a man who judges your champions by what their jawline looks like.
Yeah, because when it comes down to
your
pure jawline,
give me top 3 greatest jawlines of all time.
Well, Cody Rhodes, I guess, has rocketed his way up on my list. In no particular order. AJ Hawk's got a pretty good one.
You know what? I won't argue with that. That is a good jawline. That's a very good point.
And then
I tell you who's got a good jawline, but he's a terrible person. Armie Hammer. Wretched human being. Hell of a jawline. Hell of a jawline for Armie Hammer.
Brad Pitt's got a pretty good one.
He's got a decent jawline. Yeah. I agree with that. Well, that was what we did on the show today. Non-sports.
A couple things. Let's see. Stephen A. Smith's going to be on Colbert after the game tonight. For, I guess, to talk basketball.
4 reasons.
Yeah.
Does he watch the college basketball?
I mean, I guess just because when you think of basketball and media, he's the first.
I mean, maybe for the NBA.
Yeah. I mean, either way.
Okay, go ahead.
Race to Survive, Alaska, the series premiere on USA Network. This will be survivalists are competing for $500,000 in teams of 2 to trek across Alaska.
Okay.
In a race across the Alaskan wilderness.
Sure.
Looks pretty serious.
If you say so.
On Hulu, Pretty Baby Brooke Shields documentary, just about the sexualization that she kind of grew up in, and like the kind of abuse that she went through. So, should be interesting. And then Martha Cooks season 2 on the Roku channel.
Don't know it.
Martha Stewart is going to be sharing her recipes, baby.
Great. I saw there's a trailer out for the next season of Mrs. Maisel, which makes me very happy because we've been waiting for what feels like 8 years for another season of Mrs. Maisel, which is excellent. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's a little bit. I think it's in like 2 weeks maybe that we get to finally watch the next season of Mrs. Maisel. Hey, expert and award-winning AJ Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. Thanks today to Nathan Ruiz from the Baltimore Sun. Thanks to Pat Skerry. Thanks to Jeremy Conn. Stan hung around for a minute. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at glennclarkradio.com.
Nick Boyle will join us tomorrow.
Nick Boyle's going to join us tomorrow. He is the former Ravens tight end Nick Boyle. Showed up at Maryland Pro Day last week, and everybody was like, what the hell? Like, sometimes alumni show up, but Nick Boyle, of course, played at Delaware. So, a lot of confusion. Even more confusing, he showed up at Maryland Pro Day and was long snapping. Weird. What's that all about?
Or is it genius?
Well, the word is he's thinking about trying to transfer to a different position and extend his NFL career. So we're going to talk to him about that. He says physically he can't play tight end anymore. We know the Ravens love him. They tried to keep him around. Like, they believed in Nick Boyle, but he says physically it's done. We're going to talk to him more about that. Very interesting story as Nick Boyle will attempt to continue his NFL career in a very different way moving forward. And Patrick will join us. We'll recap the title game tonight. We'll talk about was a really weird loss for Maryland lacrosse this week.
They got dominated, really. They were never in it.
They got there. Well, no, they battled back. They got back within 2, and then Michigan. That was really weird. Really, really weird. But a good win for Hopkins. They beat Rutgers. That was a very good win for them. So we'll talk about all that with Patrick. And stuff and things, of course, on the program tomorrow. Thanks, everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including AJ Michaels, Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, Acosta Inn, Guilford Hall Brewery, Birdland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com, and Hartford Community College. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday night. Go Birds. Duke sucks.